When I woke again, I had no idea where I was. I remembered lying in a stupor in Fengyi Palace for what felt like years, until medicine could do nothing more, and I breathed my last, an Empress of over a decade. I thought I'd done a decent enough job, worthy of being called virtuous, and kind. My hands had never been stained with blood, so surely I wouldn't be going to hell. Where was this then? I was lying on something that felt like a bed, and the bed curtains looked vaguely familiar. I tried to sit up as soon as I stirred. The maid waiting outside threw the curtains open. "Miss is awake." I stared. It was Wenji, who had died of illness long ago. She'd entered the palace with me, but she'd fallen 6, 7, or 8 years back. Now here she stood, alive and real before me, leaving me a mess of tangled emotions. Is this paradise, or the lowest hell? I seized her hands and asked, "Miss, you must be completely addled from your fever. This is neither hell nor paradise. This is Qinglan Courtyard in the Grand Tutor's residence, your very own chamber." Wenji's tongue was as quick and sharp as ever, part aggravation, part affection. "You've been ill for 7 or 8 days. Are you still feeling unwell anywhere?" Dazed, I clutched the curtain. This was my bedchamber, the fabric. I had been fond of plain colors in my youth. These curtains were of coarse linen, delicately edged with gold thread, the only set of its kind in the entire capital. The rough texture felt so solidly real that I couldn't help bursting into tears. "Miss, what's wrong? Still hurting somewhere?" Someone rushed in from the outer room. My wet nurse, Madam Cui. My mother had died when I was young, so she'd taken care of all my daily needs. After I entered the palace, she was already old and frail, so I'd sent her away to retire in comfort. Seeing her after so many years, I felt an overwhelming ache. "Nurse." "Oh, my dear." She gathered me into her arms. "My little miss, what is it? Are you hungry, cold, still unwell? Nurse has made you some lean pork congee. Your favorite, isn't it?" I don't know why, but once I buried myself in her embrace, I couldn't stop crying. She held me, patting my back softly, over and over. "My girl has been wronged, hasn't she?" I wept until the world went dark. Someone had long since gone to report to my father. He stood outside the door and asked, "Warner, can father come in?" I nodded. My father entered. The moment I saw him, still in his prime, his hair still jet black, fresh tears spilled over. "Papa." He placed a hand on my forehead. "You're still a little feverish. Are you still uncomfortable? Why do you look so aggrieved? Did someone bully my child?" I sobbed uncontrollably, tears streaming down. In my last life, I had hated him. He was the one who sent me to the Eastern Palace for the sake of the Lin family. Yet later, to ease the new emperor's suspicions and protect me, he was also the one who voluntarily retired early. The last time I saw him, his hair was white and all that once bright and bold spirit was long gone. Now seeing him again, with that same caring gaze, I felt so unmoored that my nose stung and tears fell again. My nurse hurriedly wrung out a wet cloth and pressed it to my eyes. "Miss, if you keep crying, your eyes will swell. Papa doesn't love me anymore." I was filled with grievance. "You haven't come to see me in so long." My father didn't realize I was talking about a whole other lifetime. "Work has kept me busy these last couple of days. You were ill, and I was neglectful. How about Papa gives you that rare copy of the Linshu calligraphy manual later?" "No." I shook my head, tears falling again. I want Papa to stay with me." "All right." He was all indulgence when I was sick. "When Warner is all better, Papa will take you out for sticky rice chicken at Drunken Immortal House. How about that? You were just asking about it a few days ago." I was hiccuping from crying too hard to speak, so I only managed a nod. My father and nurse spent a long while coaxing me before I was calmed. When he got up to leave, I didn't want him to go, that I looked at him pleadingly. Wanner, Papa has business. He was the teacher of the third prince, the one who would one day ascend the throne. Whatever he called business likely had to do with that student who commanded the most of his energy. Unhappy, I must have looked like a spoiled child. He said a few more comforting words, instructed the nurse to add charcoal, and left in haste. That I sat there numbly for a long time before something occurred to me. That I called for Wenji to bring my mirror. A fine Western mirror, the only one of its kind in the entire Grand Tutor's manor. The girl in the glass was young and fair, her brow smooth as a spring lake, her eyes brimming with light, catching all the budding grass and soaring warblers. Her recent tears only added a touch of fragile charm. This was 14-year-old Lin Wan, vibrant and full of life, who laughed and wept freely. 34-year-old Lin Wan had shed only a few meager tears and always unconsciously furrowed her brows. Her whole face was trapped in the deep, locked melancholy of the palace. I had returned to 14, to the very beginning, before anything had happened, like waking from a dream of a lifetime. Point two, the next day, as I wandered the estate, I still felt afloat, as if walking on air. Wenji assumed it was just my recovery from the illness and thought nothing of it. Wenxing, who had been my companion the longest in my past life, was now nothing more than a timid little girl that I strolled along every path, and Wenji was startled by my sudden interest. Shut up in the deep palace for so many years, I'd grown used to every flower and tree trimmed with rigid precision, never a single branch out of place. Now, the plants here, though less exquisite, were alive and thriving in a free, lovable way. Rounding a corner, I nearly collided with a young man in white. There was only one person so careless that he still smelled of saponin. Most young nobles in the capital favored incense, but he alone thought it lacked manliness. Wanna, are you better now? Joy filled his brows, but the hand he hid behind his back revealed a hint of nervousness. That I looked at him, using every ounce of strength to keep from throwing my arms around him. I wanted to cry just seeing him. This was how my boy should have been. Clean, bright, gentle, like dawn, like spring breeze, like a broad rushing river, full of hope, making you want to heap every beautiful word in the world on him. I didn't like what he became later. Not at all. The 11th year after I married, I saw him. Again, silent and withdrawn, weathered by life, the light gone from his eyes. Tears spilled over before I could stop them, leaving him flustered. Did I upset you again, Wanner? Panic gripped him. If you're angry, just hit me a few times. Don't cry and hurt your eyes. What does my crying have to do with you? I couldn't stop the tears and turn my back on him. Somehow it felt like I was suddenly 14 again, sulking and unreasonable. His ears flushed instantly, and he stumbled over his words. Of course it matters to me. I'd be heartbroken. Hearing that, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. That I wiped my tears, but the corner of my mouth curled against my will. Pretending to be cross, I changed the subject. You're cutting class again. I heard you were much better and came to see you, he explained, then produced a green jade hairpin from behind his back. A few days ago, I went with a classmate to pick a birthday gift for his sister and bought this on a whim. I thought it was rather pretty. He rubbed his nose sheepishly. I stared at the hairpin. In my last life, I had refused it, citing impropriety between men and women, and left him utterly rebuffed. You're giving me a gift in secret, I sniffled, whispering. His eyes, full of hope a moment ago, dimmed, and he began to pull his hand back. That made me even more upset. Didn't you say it was for me? It is. His ears grew redder. Then, put it on me. I wouldn't look at him. My own boldness made my heart pound, my face burning. When she watched her usually proper young miss openly accept a private gift and didn't know what to say. Zhao Xiunian fumbled, hands trembling, until he carefully slipped the pin into my hair. "How does it look?" My tears weren't even dry, but mischief stirred, and I teased him. "Beautiful." His ears were about to catch fire. His lips moved as if searching desperately for words to prove just how good it looked, but I shot him a look that said "you're on your own," and turned to look behind him. "Papa, cousin is cutting class again." Behind Zhao Xiunian stood my father. My uncle had died young, leaving no other brothers in the family. My father, pitying Zhao Xiunian for losing his father so early, often had him stay at the Lin residence, and had taken on the task of giving him his early education. Over the years, Zhao Xiunian had practically become my father's half-disciple. My father darkened as he stalked back to his study, with Zhao Xiunian following obediently. Before he left, he pressed a little pouch into my hand. It was my favorite plum candy from my last life. Point 3 Sucking the sweet candy, I ambled slowly back, only to run into my father's other student, the third prince, Liu Sheng, the man who would later become my husband in my last life, and the one with whom I'd ended an estrangement worse than death. The moment I saw him, I inadvertently bit down on the candy in my mouth. "Lian Bao," he cleared his throat. I swayed, nearly stumbling. Lian Bao was my milk name, the name only my mother had used when she was alive. In my last life, I hadn't even told Zhao Xiunian until the Lantern Festival next year. Liu Sheng couldn't possibly know it now. I gritted my teeth and forced composure. "This humble daughter greets your highness, the third prince. I haven't seen you in a long time. I heard you were ill. You've grown quite thin." He gave a light cough, feigning concern. "I thank your highness for your concern. I am already much recovered." I never knew Liu Sheng would talk this much. I only wanted to end the conversation. "I still have matters to attend to. Please excuse me." I staggered away. Without Wenji's support, I might have fallen. Only after I reached Qinglan Courtyard did I dare sit down and collect my thoughts. He couldn't have known my milk name. After my mother died, no one had used it to my father. I was Waner, to Zhao Xiunian's sister Wan. To others, Miss Lin, or eldest young miss of the Lin family. Although I'd been married to him for nearly 20 years, our relationship had never been good. We only maintained a surface of civility. I was his empress, he my emperor. I respected him, he respected me. I managed his harem and cared for his children, and he gave me the dignity of an empress. That was all there had been. There was only one explanation. In my last life, when I was gravely ill, my nurse had come to the palace and, holding me while weeping, had used it. I remembered. That was the only time he had ever heard my milk name. So if I had come back to 14, could Liu Sheng have come back as well? A chill ran down my back. I tightened my grip on the teacup. I was already determined not to entangle with him again in this life. I would never enter the palace again. No matter what I had thought, I would be dealing with a 16-year-old Liu Sheng, easy to avoid. But if this was 36-year-old Liu Sheng, I would truly have to plan carefully. Would he let me go? I didn't know. I only knew I wouldn't let him go. Liu Sheng was a man utterly lacking in affection and trust, suspicious, selfish, and callous. He drove my father to resign and return to our hometown. Let my son die beyond the palace walls, left my sister untreated until her death, and sent the one I loved far away. I won't hold a 16-year-old Liu Sheng to account, but I will not spare him at 36. What he owes me, I will collect. The ones he harmed, I will shield. I closed my eyes for a long moment. When I opened them again, I was calm. Reborn, the virtuous empress of my last life, is dead. I am Lin Wan, alive once. More. Point 4. A few days later came yet another flower viewing party. Since losing her husband, Grand Princess Xiunian had little to do and delighted in gathering the capital's noble young ladies. Their lively chatter lifted her spirits. I, too, received an invitation, this time for a plum blossom feast on the 10th of the 12th month. I arrived punctually at the Grand Princess's residence. Many girls were already admiring the plums in Ime Garden, but having seen countless rare varieties in my previous life, I could not muster much interest now that I came today for an old friend. Elder Sister Lin. A pink-clad girl waved at me from the crowd. She could only be about 10 years old, bundled up in soft furs, and ran excitedly toward me that I in my last life. She had been consort in Jingjing, the Emperor's Xuanfei, who always chattered incessantly in my ear. She'd only accompanied me for a few years before succumbing to illness, leaving behind her daughter Jingshu for me to raise. Slow down, I called, both delighted and teary. She barreled into my arms. Sister, why are you crying? It's nothing. I stroked her head. Winter wind and sand got in my eyes. Let me blow them for you. She leaned close, then whispered conspiratorially. Sister, they bully me because I'm young. They won't play with me. Then we'll ignore them. I pulled her close. The petty schemes of little girls now seemed merely endearing. Come, stroll with me through the garden. I held her hand and, rather than mingling, sought out a secluded nook where we sat and nibbled on treats. While everyone else gathered around the plums, I watched Jingjing meticulously devour pastry after pastry. Soon it was time for poetry. I in my past life. Pride had driven me to deliberately compose a green jade table. CI poem lauding an exquisite crimson plum, while subtly alluding to the Grand Princess and her late husband's token of love. The Grand Princess adored it, clasping my hand and lavishing praise. Everyone echoed her, and overnight I became the capital's celebrated talent. Now, I saw things differently and preferred to keep a low profile. Better that the Emperor not notice me at all, that I casually scribbled impressions of Ime Garden in winter, tucking it among the efforts of girls desperate to curry favor. Entirely unremarkable, that as expected. The Grand Princess paid no attention to my poem. That day's first prize went to Wang Ci, daughter of the Vice Minister of Revenue. Grand Princess greatly favored the well-mannered and sensible Wang Ci. The girl smiled warmly with effortless grace, and flatterers clustered around her. Now the title of capital's foremost talented lady settled upon her shoulders. I raised a cup of tea, mingling in the crowd, and cast a faint smile toward the encircled Wang Ci. Fortune and misfortune. Who can tell which follows which? 5 New Year's Eve was only days away. The Empress, once again claiming a karmic affinity with me, summoned me to the palace to join her in Buddhist rites. I in my last life. The Empress had been virtuous and wise. The figure I most admired. It was a pity she had passed away so soon after Liu Sheng ascended the throne. Wana, you've come. The Empress regarded me with gentle kindness. It's been so long. I heard you were ill last month. Are you well now? Thank you for your concern, Your Majesty. I kept my eyes lowered. It was nothing but an old ailment. I am quite recovered. An old ailment. Her elegant brows drew together. Shall I summon the imperial physician to examine you? There's no need to trouble the physician, I said quickly. I was born with a weak constitution and have been taking herbal tonics for years. I forced a few coughs, pretending frailty. I in my past life. I had been a fool, terrified of making the slightest misstep in the palace, forcing myself to endure even when unwell. Little did I know that the Empress had long been allied with the third prince, Liu Sheng, and was now helping him select a consort. As I'd expected, the Empress hesitated for a moment, but still motioned for her senior palace maid to bring out a set of jade bracelets. These are newly tribute Lantian warm jade, Since you're frailly built, warm jade is said to nourish the body. Please take them." I smiled with overjoyed gratitude, rising to thank her, but feigned weakness in my hands. The heavy box proved too much. I fumbled it. The precious bracelets tumbled to the floor, and the weighty wooden case crashed down on top of them, shattering them. "Your Majesty, forgive me." I immediately knelt in supplication. Silence fell over the hall. I knelt on the icy floor, the winter's chill seeping through, but I knew I could not accept those bracelets. They were from Liu Sheng. After only the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, a servant announced that the third prince had arrived. Liu Sheng entered, and, though the situation was plain to see, feigned surprise. "Your son pays respects to mother. May I ask why Sister Wan is kneeling here?" "It's nothing," the Empress said. "The warm jade bracelets you gifted me some days ago. I intended to bestow them on the Lin girl today. Unfortunately, she failed to hold them properly, and they shattered. I thought it was something serious. If mother enjoys warm jade, I'll surely find an even finer set in the future. But please forgive Sister Wan this once. She's just recovered from a serious illness. Catching a chill again would be hard to explain to her father, my teacher." After a long pause, the Empress set down her teacup. "Very well. Since the third prince pleads for mercy, I sentence you to a month of home confinement for self-reflection." Liu Sheng reached out to help me up. My hands and feet were already freezing, but I didn't linger in the warmth of his palm. I pulled my hand back quickly, causing him a moment of awkwardness. "Sister Wan, allow me to escort you back." "I thank your highness, but I can return on my own." I curtsied. "Please stay here." 6 After I returned home, Father made me kneel in the family Buddhist hall. I understood. Without a word, I knelt properly. After all, I had to give the Empress some face, smashing a gift from Her Majesty. Far from regretting it, I felt an exhilaration I hadn't known in years. In my last life, I'd taken those bracelets unwillingly, unable to discard them or keep them, sick with unease. Though I sensed what was happening, I couldn't bluntly declare, "I do not fancy the third prince." So I'd swallowed my revulsion. Now, it was worth it. I knelt until the middle of the night when I heard a tapping at the small hall's window. Startled, I heard a voice outside. "It's me, Zhao Xiunian." I opened the window. He leaped in, bringing a gust of icy air. I shut it quickly. "What are you doing here?" "I heard you offended the Empress," he said urgently. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine," I smiled. Father is only putting on a show. He'd never really punish me. He looked me up and down. "Good. Have you eaten?" He produced from his robes several of my favorite treats like a magician. "I brought food. Have some to tide you over." We sat together. I ate while he watched. When I offered him a piece, he just leaned over and bit it from my fingers. A whole chunk of osmanthus cake. Wasn't he afraid of choking? I rolled my eyes and got up resignedly to pour him tea. The tea was scalding hot. He didn't drink. He just held the cup, his cheeks puffed out like a greedy cat's. I couldn't help a snort of laughter. Seeing me laugh, he grinned too, finally managing to swallow the enormous bite before sipping the tea in small, careful mouthfuls. Just then, my father knocked at the door. We both panicked. I shooed Zhao Xiunian to hide behind the Buddha statue before opening the door. Father stepped in. He stood. I knelt. From the corner of my eye, I glimpsed the pastries Zhao Xiunian had brought, still not fully hidden, and my head throbbed. Father gave a cold humph. Luckily, Zhao Xiunian had trained in martial arts since childhood, while Father was a pure scholar. Holding his breath, he went unnoticed. "Wanner, you've always been steady." Father fixed his gaze on me. "How did you come to offend the Empress today?" Naturally, he didn't believe I'd merely dropped the bracelets by accident. I answered bluntly, "Father, I don't want to marry the third prince." "What nonsense!" Father hissed, glancing around. The selection of an imperial consort is not something you can presume to influence. Even if Her Majesty did intend such a match, it would be your great fortune, he added in a lowered voice. It would not be my fortune. It would be my doom. I knelt straight, utterly calm. The threshold of the imperial clan is too high for me. He jabbed a finger at me, then at the pastry box clearly stamped with the Su Xiang Fong shop name. Are you secretly betrothed to someone? No, I said. The father's relief was short-lived as I added. But I do have someone in my heart. Outrageous. His hand shook with anger. Is this the daughter I raised? Have you learned nothing of virtue? Instead of proper conduct, you choose to engage in clandestine affairs. I knelt stubbornly, refusing to relent in this life. I was determined to fight for myself, and no matter what father said. I remained silent. While he trembled with fury, he raised his hand to strike me, but couldn't bring himself to do it in the end. He slapped his own face. Father! He stopped me, so disappointed he wouldn't look at me. That I have raised you like this is my failure. Reflect on your actions in this hall, he said. Don't come out until you have nothing else to do. Father left, ordering the servants to guard the small hall and allow no one near. I stayed kneeling. Zhao Xiunian emerged from behind the statue. He knelt on one knee before me and steadied me. I came back from my daze to hear him speak with difficulty. Wanner. I knew he had so many questions. Who I liked. Why I didn't want to marry the third prince. My legs could no longer hold me. I was trembling all over. Only Zhao Xiunian's support kept me from collapsing to the floor. Zhao Xiunian. I called his full name seriously. Do you like me? He looked at me and nodded. Very, very slowly, solemnly. I like you too. I smiled, and tears streamed down my face. I really, really like you too. His hands on me trembled slightly, and he pulled me carefully into his arms. We knelt there on the floor. I heard the boy's heartbeat quicken, his lips quiver, but he didn't know what to say. You don't want to marry the third prince. Then marry me. All right. He said it nervously, his normally magnetic voice now a little stammering. Once you come of age, I'll go to your father to ask for your hand. Would you be willing to marry me? I leaned against his shoulder, tears falling in pure grievance. It's too late. I babbled. The light in the Buddha hall was dim, my eyes were blurry, and for a moment I couldn't tell this life from the last. I'm going to marry Liu Sheng. Zhao Xiunian, I don't want to marry him. I was so miserable that tears streamed down. He treats me not well at all. Not well at all. Then marry me, he coaxed. I swear, I'll treat you well. It's no use. I wept uncontrollably. You left. You went to the northwest and stayed there for more than 10 years. No letters. No news. Never came back. I lived in the palace for over 10 years. I shut my eyes. Every day I opened my eyes to an empty bed, an empty table, an empty hall. I kept watch over that palace, enduring day after day, year after year. And later, I finally escaped, because I died. I trembled and burrowed into Zhao Xiunian's arms. I don't want to marry him. I don't want to enter the palace again. Wanner. Seeing my haunted state, Zhao Xiunian called anxiously, but I kept mumbling deliriously. Please, please don't put me back in the palace, Wanner. He steadied me. It won't happen. It won't happen. No one can force you into the palace. You still have me. I will never let you go back. I sagged limply, unable to hear his words. After kneeling so long in the palace that morning, I really had caught a chill. He felt my forehead. It was burning hot. Wanner, you have a fever. He swept me up in his arms. You must be delirious from the fever. I'll take you to a doctor. I let him carry me out of the small Buddha hall. The shrieks of maids and servants sounded distant, and unreal. He wrapped his cloak tightly around me. All I knew was that my father looked blacker than thunder when he saw me, as though he'd caught us in bed red-handed. But since I was his only child, for all his grumbling, he still chased the butler off to fetch a doctor as fast as possible. That I lay on the bed, drifting in and out of feverish sleep, while Zhao Xiunian was dragged away by my father. Dreamed that I in the dream I returned to Fengyi Palace. My child came to see me, came to pay his respects. That I wanted to reach out and touch him, but a swarm of faceless palace servants surged up and led him away. That I tried to chase after him, only to be held down by another swarm of faceless servants. That I couldn't move, that I could only watch helplessly as they took my child farther and farther away, until he disappeared. Lear, I screamed desperately, but I could only watch him vanish. I woke up. Zhao Xiunian sat by my bed. He held my hand, the warm touch reminding me this was already the next life. In the previous life he died of smallpox. Smallpox his father had insisted on giving him. Who is Lear? Zhao Xiunian tightened his grip, his gaze full of concern. I shook my head, not wanting to tell him. When you were burning with fever, you kept calling out for him, he said, crying as though your heart was being torn apart. Wanner, I don't know what you've been through. If you don't want to speak of it, I won't ask. He sighed. But if anything troubles you, you should tell me. That I'll do everything I can. He got up to pour me some water, but moved stiffly. That I didn't let go of his hand. Did my father beat you? Worth a beating to win his precious daughter. Don't worry. When you come of age, I'll come to propose. He looked at me. I said I would marry you, and I will marry you. The young man's eyes burned bright and sincere, so earnest that I could no longer keep hiding the truth from him. That I trusted him. Zhao Xiunian, I spoke with difficulty. Do you believe in past lives and present lives? He reached his hand toward my forehead, but I caught it with my other hand. Do you believe me? Hesitantly, he nodded. I know what I'm about to tell you may be hard to accept. Even now I can hardly believe I'm alive again. But in my previous life, I really did die. In that life, I married Liu Sheng. I stared at the bed canopy, as though talking to myself. You went to the northwest. Grandfather had you knocked unconscious and taken away. Liu Sheng became the crown prince. I became the crown princess, and then he took the throne. I became the Empress. I never liked him. But later I became pregnant. I had a child, named Liu. He was very promising, very well behaved. I was the Empress for many years, terribly lonely, without meaning. The only thing that kept me alive was Liu. I thought, I must raise him. But then he died in the spring, and after that I couldn't go on. I spoke incoherently, almost out of breath, and had to pause for a few moments. And then, when I opened my eyes again, I was back at 14. Was it that bad cold? He asked quietly. I nodded. No wonder. He stroked my forehead. I always felt you were different from before, but couldn't put my finger on exactly how. Maybe because I can't make you laugh as easily anymore. My eyes pricked with grievance. I felt as tearful as a 14-year-old Lin Wan. Indeed, he wiped my tears away. Don't cry. Your eyes are all swollen. Oh, right. A thought suddenly struck me. Urgently, I said. On the 28th day of the 12th month this year, old General Zhuang went out riding on a whim, fell from his horse, and died. General Zhuang was one of the top generals of the great Zhou. His spear art so masterly it seemed supernatural. He had no children. Countless young men of the realm yearned to study under him. But he never found a worthy personal disciple. Others only learned the merest surface of his skills. He was only 57 or 58 that year. No one would believe he could fall off a horse and die. After all, the old general had practically grown up on horseback. But he had been drunk and then run into a pack of wolves. and that was how he met his end. The afternoon of the day after tomorrow, go to the apricot grove outside the city. You will certainly be able to save old General Zhuang. I urgently urged Zhao Xiunian on that I end my past life. He deeply regretted the general's death, for the Zhaos excelled in blade arts. But for the spear, the Zhuangs reigned supreme, but he didn't move. You have to believe me. All right. He pressed me gently back onto the bed. I believe you. Just, first, get well. A faint gravity settled over his eyes. You still have me. I've never believed in ghosts and spirits, but I know that Wanner never lies to me. I promise you, I will marry you, that I will protect you. Everything in your dreams will never happen. No1 will lock you in a palace. No1 will harm your child. Wanner, I will marry you, that I definitely will. The boy before me seemed to grow up overnight, that a few streaks of steadfastness stained his eyes. Word by word, he promised me. He would protect me. Protect me. 8 After Zhao Xiunian left that day, I stayed in bed recovering. My father refused to see me. He was angry and deeply disappointed in me. He had always thought he had raised a virtuous and gentle daughter, like my mother. He didn't understand why I had suddenly become so bold, as brazen as those women of ill repute, to actually confess my feelings to another family's son. For the moment, I didn't know how to convince my father, so I merely waited for the right time. On the 28th of the 12th month, Zhao Xiunian indeed went to the outskirts. On the afternoon of the 28th, word came that Zhao Xiunian happened to be passing by and saved the drunken old General Zhuang. On the 29th, the old general woke from his wine, praised Zhao Xiunian lavishly, and decided to take him as his sole personal disciple. On the 30th, New Year's Eve, that night, my father finally could bear to see me. I smiled sheepishly while he kept a stern face. Your mother left early. He poured me a small cup of fruit wine. Before she breathed her last, she told me, I must raise you well. I promised her. That's why all these years I never remarried. I was afraid a stepmother would treat you badly. He paused. I was also afraid I might not treat you well. When your mother was alive, she always wanted to raise you into a proper young lady of a great family. So for all these years, I taught you music, chess, calligraphy, and painting, taught you to read and write, taught you the women's classics. He went on. I always thought I had raised you decently enough and had not failed your mother's hopes. But now I see, maybe I'm not very good at raising a child after all. When he finished, he drained his cup in one gulp. For a time, silence reigned in the room. Father, you are a very, very good father. I know you wanted me to become a woman like my mother. I used to think that was perfect, but later, I became afraid. That day when I entered the palace, I saw Consort Ling. I spoke as if to myself. She is Minister Zhou's younger sister, the Aunt Ling I loved to cling to when I was little. When Mother was still alive, Aunt Ling often came to our home to play. I remember Aunt Ling had a round, cheerful face and loved to laugh, with 2 little dimples. Her palms were always warm, and she could make so many pastries. But Consort Ling sat up high in her palanquin. Now she is very thin, dressed splendidly, and merely nodded coldly at me, without saying a single word. The little palace maid guiding me said Consort Ling was in a hurry to see His Majesty, and told me not to take it to heart. But father, when I saw Consort Ling, I was terrified. I don't want to become another her. I've entered the palace many times, and I've seen many imperial consorts. They are all the same, gentle and silent, dressed in identical splendid robes, covered in pearls and jade, like one shadow after another. Father, I don't want to become them. It's true that Mother hoped I would become a proper young lady, but Mother also said she hoped I would be safe and happy. I'm sorry, Father. In this life, I might have to disappoint your expectations. Tears pattered down, and the hall fell silent. Then my father sighed. Don't cry. This crying nature of yours is exactly like your mother's. He reached over and stroked my hair. You don't want to enter the palace. Father won't force you. These past few days, I've done some thinking too. He sighed. My Wanner's safe and happy matters more than anything. Father. I lowered my head and leaned toward his shoulder. He stroked my hair with his other hand, and no words were needed. I hugged my father's arm that I secretly wiped away my tears. Father, let's eat. All right. As we ate and talked about ordinary things and funny stories from my childhood, the room filled with warmth that we ate late into the night. Fireworks bloomed outside the window that I was taken aback for a moment, then smiled. Father, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. 9 On the second day of the new year, Father took me back to the Zhao family home. Grandmother was still hale and hearty that in her youth she had followed grandfather onto the battlefield. Though she is older now, she still carries herself with a gallant bearing. My maternal grandfather was stationed in the northwest, and the red envelope he sent back was gratifyingly thick, accompanied by a rambling 10-page lecture. Best ignored. My aunt, gentle and warm, took my hand and asked me about everything under the sun. After my uncle's death, she had resolved to remain a chaste widow, devoting herself entirely to chanting Buddhist sutras and simmering soup. It was only after I had drunk 3 bowls of wolfberry chicken soup at her place that she finally released me. Then, while strolling through the Zhao family's rear garden, I saw Zhao Xiunian again. The young man stood tall and elegant amid the snowy scene, and my mind could summon only a single phrase: flawless beauty. Wanner. He called me over and began to remove his cloak to wrap around me. I'm not cold. I stopped him. Aunt gave me a duck-down cape. I'm perfectly warm. Your hands are chilly. Quite naturally, he warmed them for me. Let's talk inside. We stepped into the little pavilion in the rear garden. Now that winter had settled in, thick fabric screens were tightly fastened around it on all sides, and charcoal braziers had been lit. It was cozy. Old General Zhuang has said he wants to take me as his disciple, Zhao Xiunian said, looking at me. When I met him, he really was wrestling a pack of wolves. I truly wasn't lying to you. I lowered my head, a trace of sulkiness in my voice. Nobody likes having their wounds torn open again and again for others to see that. If he didn't believe me, so be it. I never disbelieved you. He paused. I was only thinking, in your past life, you must have suffered terribly. Why was I away in the Northwest for over 10 years and never returned? His expression filled with sorrow. Even in your sleep, you cried out with such heartbreaking agony. How could I ever bear to leave you? It wasn't that you were willing to leave. It was that you couldn't come back. As I warmed myself by the fire, I spoke as calmly as I could. After the Lin family aligned itself with Liu Sheng's faction, he ascended the throne and became emperor. He purged many noble clans. To protect you, grandfather confined you in the northwest. Liu Sheng always suspected I had private feelings for you. So for your sake and mine, I kept my distance. We didn't dare exchange letters, let alone see each other. I never blamed you. I kept my head lowered. But I did dream, once, that you would take me away. Even if it meant going to the northwest to freeze and eat dust with you, I would have been willing. But we couldn't be that selfish. Behind us stood 2 families, the Zhaos and the Lins. 34 members of the Zhao family and 121 members of the Lin family. My head was still bowed when someone embraced me from behind, and I fell into a warm chest. He whispered in my ear, "In this life, to me, you come before both the Zhaos and the Lins." I wept without a sound. He held me tighter and tenderly wiped away my tears. Fiercely, I reproached him. You've made me cry again. My fault, Dawaner, don't cry. He offered no excuses, just patiently soothed me over and over. A long while later, when my tears stopped, I asked, is there anything else you want to know about our past life? In my last life, did I ever make a grave mistake because I trusted the wrong person or the wrong thing? No. In my last life, did I ever miss someone or something? Only me. So it seems that in my last life, you were the only one I failed. I was the one who failed you. Then in this life, you must not fail me. I promise. He kissed me, and I didn't avoid it. That was our very first kiss. Awkward, yet sweet. In his mouth was the taste of fine bamboo leaf tea. So clear and refreshing. I'd never kissed anyone, and neither had he. Not in this life, and not in the last. But luckily he was gentle, advancing little by little. It wasn't a bad experience at all. A long while later. Is there anything else you want to ask? No, nothing. Forget all those bygone matters. None of them will happen in this life. All right. 10 that year, at the Lantern Festival, the Empress still sent me an invitation to the palace. I had thought the Empress would certainly disdain me, so I was a little surprised to receive it. On second thought, it must have been Liu Sheng's doing. As it happened, I wanted to enter the palace and meet an old acquaintance. If my memory served, this very Lantern Festival, Liu Sheng was supposed to take a daughter of the Sun family as his concubine, Sun Fuxiang, in my past life, consort Sun, and later virtuous consort Da. How much did she love Liu Sheng? When he was attacked by assassins, she threw herself in front of a blade for him, and from then on could never bear children. But what did Liu Sheng give her? Night after night of guarding an empty chamber alone. Because she couldn't bear children, in his eyes she no longer qualified to share his bed. Yet luckily, she withdrew her heart in time and wrapped herself in a shell of prim, dignified propriety, eventually rising to become the chief of the 4 consorts. Later, after I died, I entrusted Xuanfei's daughter to her care. So in this life, I still wanted to help her. I found her in a corner of the Lantern Feast, Sister Sunday. My smile was sincere. At this point, she was still the proud, aloof maiden of the Sun family, on her guard and reserved. She paid me no attention. Does Miss Lin have some business with me? The moment I saw you, I felt a rapport. The handkerchief in your hand looks like fine Sioux embroidery. Just a little trinket I embroidered for fun, she replied. Her interest piqued. She unfurled the handkerchief for me to see. Here's a winter sweet blossom I stitched. I used exactly the embroidery technique that virtuous consort had later taught me, and, completely unashamed, handed it back to her. Sun Fuxiang heaped praises on me. Marveling at my skill, we talked so enthusiastically that we paid no mind, even to the young palace maid who came to tug at us. In my previous life, Sun Fuxiang's name had already been passed over at last year's consort selection. Yet today, she was tricked by Liu Sheng into a grove behind the imperial garden. When the little maid came to fetch her, it was an invitation to enter the trap. Nothing more than giving Liu Sheng an opportunity to play the hero rescuing the beauty. Liu Sheng wanted to draw on the Sun family's power, but naive as she was, Sun Fuxiang truly fell in love with him at first sight. That we chatted until the banquet dispersed, and she never once rose from her seat. As the youngest daughter of her branch, she had come to the feast attended only by her uncle's wife because her own mother, Lady Sun, had been ill and unable to attend. That was what gave Liu Sheng his opening. No doubt when Lady Sun recovered in a few days, she would be fully capable of protecting this simple-hearted girl who loved nothing more than embroidery. We parted reluctantly at the palace gate, exchanging endearments. She felt an instant kinship with me, calling me Sister Wan, and I called her Sister Sun, promising to meet again soon. As for Liu Sheng, he could wait in the wind behind the Imperial Garden. 11 The New Year festivities had not yet ended. Father was busy paying social calls to every household, while I shut my doors and refused to go out. Apart from invitations from Jingjing and Sister Sun, I declined all others. That day, Liu Sheng came to call on my father. As it happened, Father had gone to a banquet at the Zhuang residence. The third prince's status was exalted, and it would not do to leave him kicking his heels in the hallway. Moreover, our household had no proper lady at home to preside, so I had no choice but to receive the guest myself. I secretly sent someone to fetch Zhao Xiunian. As far as I remembered, he was free today. I dawdled my way to the front hall to play the hostess first. Your servant greets the third prince. Everyone else, withdraw. I have a word to say to Sister Wanner. I signaled the steward to leave first. In any case, he wouldn't dare do anything to me. Lin Wan. He lifted a teacup. Last night, I dreamed that we had a child together, called Yuer. How dare he mention Yuer? Full of loathing, I shot him a glare, but he suddenly raised his head, and our eyes met. Third prince, behave yourself. I struck first. Between me, your servant, and your highness there has never been the slightest impropriety. How would a child arise? If your highness cares not for his own reputation, pray spare a thought for mine. The Lin family has the strictest morals. Does your highness wish to drive me to my death? It was my muddled thought, he said with a ghastly smile. Merely a dream. Naturally, it cannot be taken as real. His smile was so hypocritical, I felt nauseated. What dream could so preoccupy the third prince? Zhao Xiunian's voice carried in from outside. Your servant has actually read a few miscellaneous books on dream interpretation. Would he have the good fortune to interpret the third prince's dream? He strode inside and shielded me behind him. Wanner is timid. Third prince, do not frighten her. I would certainly not frighten Lin Bao. Liu Sheng's smile was provocative. I came to visit my teacher. What is young Master Zhao doing here? I have come to see my betrothed. Since when did Lin Bao become young Master Zhao's betrothed? Your Highness, I helpfully explained. Your servant and brother Nian were betrothed before birth. I was promised to him even before I was born. It is only that father, fearing that I was too frail and might not be able to honor the engagement, did not make it public. Nonetheless, Brother Nian is indeed my intended husband. Quietly I clasped Zhao Xiunian's hand, our fingers interlacing openly without the slightest avoidance. Just now you claimed the Lin family has the strictest morals. Oh, how is it that with Zhao Xiunian here, those strictures have suddenly vanished? A betrothed couple, and not even alone in a room. What is there to avoid? Zhao Xiunian conceded not an inch. Together, we turned our eyes to the extremely unwelcome Liu Sheng in the room, nearly making his nose crooked with rage. For a moment, silence reigned, broken only by the sound of Liu Sheng drinking tea. It lasted until my father returned. The two of us were still openly holding hands. Father shot me a look, and only then did I reluctantly withdraw my hand. Liu Sheng was called away by my father. Zhao Xiunian walked me back. I looked at Zhao Xiunian, my eyes full of worry. He has come back too. The Liu Sheng from our past life has returned. What do we do? Don't be afraid. He held my hand. I'm here. I steadied myself, a little of my panic subsiding. Still, I was anxious he might think too much of it. Lin Bao is my childhood named. In the last life he didn't know it either. Only when I was about to die of illness, my wet nurse came to the palace to see me, and that's when he learned it. In the last life, he never called me by it. That it was always Empress this and Empress that. He even took a folk woman he was very fond of, and made her consort Lin. I pouted. In truth, It was something meaningless, but Liu Sheng had made it so revolting that I felt a measure of displeasure anyway. All right now, how did you just call me? He smiled, teasing me that I knew he must be feeling displeased too. But he was hiding it to cheer me up, determined to coax him. I called out in my most coquettish voice, Brother Nyan. As soon as I said it, I disgusted myself first. My face was full of distaste, but he was delighted, laughing loudly right there in my little courtyard, so embarrassed that I reached out to pummel him. Unfortunately for me, he had trained in martial arts since youth, and his body was all whipcord muscle. Hitting him hurt my hands so much that he ended up rubbing them for me instead. In the end he embraced me and whispered in my ear, "Don't be afraid of anything, so what if he's returned? You just have to remember, you still have me. Right?" I still had him. 12 After the first month, Zhao Xiunian grew busy. Old General Zhuang had taken him as a disciple and drilled him relentlessly every day from dawn to dusk, without a moment's mercy. Just the movement of wheeling his mount and drawing his spear had been practiced no fewer than 1,000 times that I was busy with another matter. In my past life, after Jingjing died, I had been investigating the cause of her death. The physicians of the Imperial Medical Academy were all top-notched. If it had been an ordinary illness, there was none they couldn't cure. Even if they couldn't cure it, they couldn't possibly have failed to diagnose it. That I pored over ancient medical texts and secretly sent people to seek answers among the common folk. Finally, for years after Xuanfei's death, a folk healer said that Xuanfei's illness was something he had seen before. It wasn't a disease from the north. That it came from the south, in the southern Fujian region. People loved to eat raw fish and raw snails, which often carried parasitic eggs. Once consumed, those eggs entered the body and developed into adult worms that lived as parasites inside. That physician said that in all his years traveling north and south, he had never seen such an illness anywhere except in southern Fujian. It didn't cause a quick death, but slowly withered the limbs while the belly swelled ever larger by the day. I calculated the timeline. Jingjing shouldn't have caught it yet. When Jingjing was 11, her father, along with several other censors, had somehow offended the emperor and been exiled to southern Fujian. It wasn't until a new emperor ascended and granted a general amnesty that her father was reinstated. It had been 4 or 5 years since I'd seen her. From the time I turned 14, that we only kept in touch by letter. Those must have been the years she contracted the disease down south. That I told Zhao Xiunian everything, hoping to plot with him how to prevent this and save Jingjing's life. But that scoundrel Zhao Xiunian actually went and slipped Censor-in-Chief Lorden, Jingjing's father, a genuine laxative. Lorden was forced to take 7 full days of sick leave from court. By the time he recovered, the other censors had already been dispatched to suffer in southern Fujian. Lorden could only rub his nose and keep silent. Fortunately, Zhao Xiunian still had a conscience. That he sent people to find renowned local doctors in southern Fujian, telling them about the connection between this strange illness and eating raw fish, shrimp, snails, and crabs. That he gave them a new angle for prevention and cure. That I had wanted to give him a good beating to avenge Lorden for that poisoning. But when he cheerfully showed up at my door ready to accept his punishment, I just couldn't go through with it. To put it simply, there was no spot on Zhao Xiunian's body that I could actually land a hit. General Zhuang had trained him so brutally that every inch of him was as hard as rock. Instead, after listening to him whine, I ended up feeling sorry for him, and he once again took advantage of me. 13 Before I knew it, it was time for the spring worship banquet again. According to Great Zhou customs, the rituals to the spring deity had to be performed before one could sow seeds. Prayers for favorable weather, good growth, a bountiful autumn harvest, and a secure winter. Again I received the Empress's invitation, and my head ached horribly. This was definitely Liu Sheng's doing. I'd had no idea in my last life that he harbored such deep feelings for me. Considering family and political strength, his present infatuation, consort Li and Li Shujun, should be pursuing him furiously right now. If he accepted Li Shujun as his consort, she'd be a huge asset to his bid for the throne. Could it be he prized my housekeeping skills? I racked my brains in bafflement, but had no choice but to enter the palace. After all, I had already declined Her Majesty the Empress's invitations twice. Once inside the palace, a young maid led me on a winding path into the imperial garden. I already knew his game. Liu Sheng had planned another charade of hero rescuing beauty, casting me as the damsel in distress. That I strolled leisurely up to the stone bridge and waited for Liu Sheng to appear. After all, he couldn't swim. Sister Wanner. Liu Sheng approached, wearing that polished, refined mask of his. I had to choke down my revulsion and greet him. Third Prince. What a lovely evening. Has Sister Wanner come out to enjoy the moon? I was mistakenly led here by the maid. As if you didn't summon me, I thought, but I put on a sweetly gentle expression. Tonight's moonlight is so fine, he said, tapping his closed fan against his palm. It makes me think of my second daughter, Jingshu. She too was born beneath such a perfect moon. I pretended not to understand. Third Prince seems confused. You don't even have a consort yet. Where would you have a child from? Yes, a great pity. He sighed. I treated Jingshu so well, and yet she resented me for not marrying her to the principal graduate. Afterwards she pined away that I gave her many things, but none helped. In the end she died of heart sickness, the very same illness as my wife. Liu Sheng. I was furious. I glared at him, and I slipped, revealing that I, too, had come back. Lin Wan. So you did return. He laughed coldly. From the moment you prevented me from taking Sun Fuxiang as a concubine, I knew. I ground my teeth at him, but then I switched to a pitiful expression and cried. I beg your highness to show some decency. Then, with an exaggerated show of righteous indignation, I leaped straight into the lake. The spring water was still bone-chilling cold. I shivered, held my breath, and let myself sink. From the bridge, Liu Sheng watched, gnashing his teeth. Helpless, he couldn't swim. In my past life, everyone had been kept in the dark about that secret. I only reasoned it out later. After he became emperor, at the hot spring retreat, Gold Concubine tried to get close to him in the bathhouse pool and almost made him drown. After that retreat, Gold Consort hanged herself in the cold palace, and every last attendant was beaten to death. I put two and two together. Liu Sheng stood on the bridge. Approaching from behind him, the emperor, accompanied by a group of noble young gentlemen, was strolling to enjoy the moon. I had spotted Zhao Xiunian long ago. It was because of him I had dared to take this leap. People in the Minnan region are fond of eating raw fish and raw snails. The snails often carry parasitic eggs. If someone eats them, the eggs enter the body, mature into worms, and live inside the host. The physician said he had traveled widely for over a decade and only ever seen this disease in Minnan. It doesn't kill quickly, he said, but it makes the limbs grow thinner and thinner while the belly swells. Fortunately, Zhao Xiunian still had some conscience. He sent men to find reputable physicians in Minnan and told them about the strange disease and its link to eating raw fish, shrimp, snails, and crabs, giving them new ideas for prevention and treatment. I'd meant to give him a good pounding on behalf of Master, but the moment he got my message, he came trotting over, all too happy to be beaten, and I couldn't bring myself to do it. There was one simple reason. The wretch had been worked so brutally by old General Zhuang that there wasn't a single spot on his body I could hit without hurting myself. Instead, his pitiful complaints wrung my heart, and he got the better of me yet again. Before I knew it, the spring blessing banquet had arrived again. It was a great Zhou folk custom. Pray to the spring god before planting, that the year might bring favorable weather, healthy crops, a good harvest in the autumn, and an easier winter. Once more, I received an invitation from Her Majesty. The Empress had 8. This was surely Liu Sheng's doing. That I had no idea Liu Sheng had been this deeply attached to me in my last life. Consider status and political advantage. In that other life, consort Li Shujun, was now chasing him relentlessly. If he were willing to marry Li Shujun, it would be a tremendous boost to his bid for the throne. Could it be he valued my ability to manage a household? I racked my brains but could not understand. Still, I could not refuse to enter the palace. I had already declined the Empress's invitations twice. Once inside the palace, a young maid led me by one winding turn after another into the imperial garden, but I understood at once. Liu Sheng still meant to stage a hero saving the beauty. Leisurely, I climbed the stone bridge and waited quietly for Liu Sheng to appear. After all, he could not swim. Wan, my dear sister. Liu Sheng approached. Once again wearing that polished mask of gentility, I had to swallow my revulsion and respond politely. Third Prince. The night view is so lovely. Are you also out enjoying the moon, little sister Wan? I was misled by a young maid. I answered, though in my heart I was cursing him. You're the one who called me here. Yet I must display a demure manner. The moonlight is so beautiful tonight. He tapped his palm with his fan. It reminds me of my second daughter, Jingshu. She, too, was born on such a fine day. I pretended not to understand. You must be bewitched, Your Highness. You haven't even taken a consort yet. How can you have a daughter? Ah, pity. He sighed. I treated Jingshu so well, yet she resented me for not marrying her to the top scholar. She grew despondent afterward. Nothing I sent could lift her spirits. In the end she died of despair and stifled grief, the exact same illness that killed my first wife. Liu Sheng. I was furious and glared at him. But in that moment I betrayed the truth. I, too, had been reborn. Lin Wan, so you have indeed returned. He gave a cold laugh. I knew it from the moment you kept me from taking Sun Fuxiang as a concubine. I gritted my teeth and stared him down, then abruptly switched to an expression of pitiful helplessness and cried out in a loud voice. I begged the third prince to observe the proprieties. And with that, I threw myself into the lake in tragic despair. The spring water was still rather cold that I shivered, held my breath, and let my body sink. Liu Sheng stood on the bridge, grinding his teeth, helpless. He could not swim in my last life. He kept everyone in the dark about that secret. I only reasoned it out later. After he became emperor, at the hot spring retreat, Gold Concubine tried to get close to him in the bathhouse pool and almost made him drown. After that retreat, Gold Consort hanged herself in the cold palace, and every last attendant was beaten to death. That I put 2 and 2 together. Liu Sheng stood on the bridge. Approaching from behind him, the emperor, accompanied by a group of noble young gentlemen, was strolling to enjoy the moon. That I had spotted Zhao Xiunian long ago. It was because of him I had dared to take this leap. Sure enough, my young man came plunging headlong to save me. Without a second thought for himself, beneath the surface, the light was murky. I couldn't read his expression, but I felt him swimming toward me, breaking the darkness. Down here in the gloom, I was struggling, sinking, and he was my god come to rescue me. When I was pulled back on his shore, Zhao Xiunian had already wrapped me securely in his outer coat. The emperor favored the third prince and wanted to turn a mountain into a molehill. Whose girl is that? She needs to change out of those wet clothes immediately. Your Imperial Majesty. I knelt and kowtowed that I would not let this be swept under the rug. I, Lin Wan, do formally accuse the third prince of harassing me and speaking improperly. Lin Wan. The emperor's eyes narrowed. Your director Lin Yuan's daughter. Yes, your majesty. If you are Lin Yuan's girl, virtue and decorum should be in your blood. Your father is an upright and noble man that I will trust you this once. Explain, how did the third prince harass you? Your majesty, the third prince knows full well that I have been betrothed since childhood. Yet he has repeatedly spoken to me with impropriety. Today he lured me to the imperial garden and then spouted wild nonsense, insisting that I and the third prince have borne children together. I was terrified. I could only beg him to mind his conduct, but that only enraged him. I had no choice left but to drown myself to prove my innocence. Your Majesty, Zhao Xiunian spoke, kneeling beside me and subtly shifting forward to shield me from view. Lady Lin and I were betrothed before we were born. The only reason it was not made public was her delicate health and the fact that she had yet to go through the selection process. It was not necessary to broadcast our arrangement. The emperor fell silent. He intended to make the third prince the crown prince. Harassing an official's daughter was a small matter. Babbling about supernatural reincarnations was a grave matter. I was still gambling on Liu Sheng's arrogance. In my last life, he reigned for so long that the imperial garden was naturally filled with his own people. But in this life, he was merely a third prince. This garden was vast. Surely it could conceal more than one set of eyes. The emperor was quiet for a moment. The spring night is cold. Young Lady Lin, go change your clothes that I will certainly give you an explanation. Zhao Xiunian shielded me without any attempt to hide his devotion. The two of us withdrew to put on dry garments. When we returned, palace attendants respectfully guided us to the main hall of the spring blessing banquet. We entered the hall, faces calm and composed. Liu Sheng knelt there, head bowed and silent. We walked forward and knelt as well, just in time to hear the emperor ask my father, Minister Lin, what do you make of this? My father stepped forward and slapped me across the face. Wretched girl, your majesty, it is entirely my fault for failing to raise my daughter properly. My father knelt in front of me, shielding me from view. My humble wife passed away early, and I have been too occupied with official duties. Moreover, your majesty entrusted me with the third prince's education. It is now clear that, in public duty, I failed to properly instruct his highness, and in private duty, I have failed to raise my daughter. Your majesty, my father removed his official cap. I am unworthy of your majesty's trust. I am incompetent to shoulder such weighty responsibilities. I beg permission to resign and return to my hometown. The spring blessing banquet had been ruined. The atmosphere was grim. The Empress wanted to intercede, but the emperor silenced her with a glance. The third prince has been overworking himself of late, and is suffering a persistent high fever. He truly is delirious, the emperor said. In that case, let him return to his residence to recuperate. I wager he will not be fully recovered before the end of the year. Today, young Lady Lin fell into the water, and the Zhao lad rescued her. This can be considered a fine romantic tale. Since the two of you are already betrothed, I hereby decree this marriage for you. Have an auspicious date chosen, and I shall bestow wedding gifts upon you both. Minister Lin, the emperor stepped down and personally helped my father to his feet. You have served the court for 20 years. I have seen your hard work, managing affairs of state while also tutoring the princes. It has been too heavy a burden. Very well. I appoint you as Secretariat Director, so you may cultivate your health and keep me company for a few more years. Secretariat Director was a nominal post, but it suited my father perfectly, because with this, the Lin family and the third prince were officially unbound. On the carriage ride home, as soon as my father and I settled in, Zhao Xiunian squeezed inside. "Does it hurt?" My father asked me. That I shook my head. I knew he had slapped me only to protect me. "Father, why did you?" I looked at him, truly puzzled. Why would my father choose this moment to resign? He couldn't really be doing it simply to vent my anger. "It was me," Zhao Xiunian said while clumsily but gently applying ointment to my face. "I told my father-in-law everything. The Lin and Zhao families have to support another prince's rise. I couldn't keep it from him." He mumbled his defense, and I lowered my head to shoot him a glare. "Then what the third prince said, is it all true?" My father half closed his eyes and cast me an unreadable sidelong glance. That I bowed my head and waited meekly for a scolding. "Today, if Zhao Xiunian hadn't jumped in to save you, did you really mean to drown yourself? And how is it that you could tell Zhao Xiunian you've lived this life twice, but you couldn't tell your own father?" "I was afraid you wouldn't believe me," I murmured. "Today you dared to accuse the third prince before the emperor. What were you thinking? You were gambling on his arrogance, weren't you? Betting that he thinks like an emperor when he's only a prince. But Lin Wan, at this moment you are no empress. You are a 14-year-old girl who still smells of milk. Outside, inside this family, your influence doesn't amount to a single one of your father's fingers." So furious was my father that he jabbed his finger at me that I knew I was in the wrong and didn't dare dodge. Zhao Xiunian shielded my forehead. "Don't be angry, father-in-law. Perhaps it was because you were too muddled in the last life that Wanner didn't trust you. Then tell me, how was your father muddled in the last life?" "In that life, the emperor issued an imperial decree ordering me to enter the Eastern Palace as crown princess. I didn't want to go. You knelt and begged me." I lowered my head. "Begged me to consider the lives of the more than 100 members of the Lin family. You said if I refused you would not rise. You said if I refused I would be betraying our ancestors, betraying my mother, betraying the kindness you had shown in raising me. So, I agreed." I pressed my lips together. "Later, you came to regret it. After Liu Sheng ascended the throne, he turned on us. He suppressed you at every turn. Eventually, I became pregnant, and to protect me and my child, you voluntarily resigned and returned to our hometown. And after that, I never saw you again." For a moment the carriage was utterly quiet. Zhao Xiunian tactfully jumped down from the carriage, making my heart lurch, but he waved at me, and I breathed easy again. That I did not want to receive an imperial decree of marriage today, only to be widowed tomorrow. And my father closed his eyes without speaking, and I had no idea what was going through his mind. "Everything you said, is it true?" I nodded, saying nothing. "Then in my past life, I truly wasn't much of a father." He smiled through tears and shook his head. "I let you and your mother down so badly. No wonder you didn't want to tell me." Seeing him weep, I panicked. "Father, I don't blame you anymore." I rested my head on his knee, and he stroked my hair. "In this life, I'll try to be a good father. At the very least, I have to fight for my Wanner." "Father." I buried my face in his lap and sobbed quietly. "Father is the best." When the water lilies in the pond were just about to bloom, I came of age. I asked Antin, Jingjing's mother, to perform the hairpin ceremony. She had been my mother's most intimate friend since childhood, and her eldest daughter, Jingjing, often played with me when we were young. Then I lost my mother, and she lost her daughter, so she came to treat me as her own, better even than she treated Jingjing. "Aunt," I called to her, "come in and sit down. Wanner is a young lady now." She naturally adjusted the hairpin in my hair. Your auntie brought you something special today. What is it? I teased to lift her spirits. Drunken Celestial's wine-braised duck, Hibiscus Pavilion's rose pastries, or Mamma Mia's homemade candied cherries. Oh, you. She shook her head, caught between exasperation and affection. Still such a child. She opened the sandalwood box in her hand, revealing a full set of kingfisher feather headpieces. I prepared this for your coming-of-age ceremony the year you were born, but it has been so long. The colors have naturally faded. I had it cleaned and reset just the other day. I clung to her arm. Juana loves it very much. She helped me put the ornaments on one by one. The weight of such elaborate finery was a bit heavy at first, but my past life had accustomed me to it, so I adjusted quickly. You're no longer a child. She carefully painted my eyebrows. When you marry one day, you must know your manners and abide by the rules. Being a daughter-in-law is not easy. Don't give anyone reason to gossip. Aunt, I said brightly. My future mother-in-law is also my aunt. Well, I've caught you speaking ill of me, said my aunt, the one who was also my future mother-in-law, as she walked in. What? Are you afraid I won't treat Juana well? She pretended to swat at me. Let me tell you, Juana is not just your daughter. She is mine as well. It's a blessing she's marrying into your family. If you ever mistreat her, I'll come straight to your door to lodge a complaint. Come by all means. Then you can see for yourself how I treat my own daughter. That's hard to say. Mothers-in-law always talk big. I simply smiled bashfully, watching the two elders bicker, until my aunt asked me, Juana, you tell me, do I treat you well? Of course Annie treats me wonderfully, but if I have to take sides, whichever one I pick will break the other mother's heart. You really do know how to keep both sides happy. My aunt laughed and wanted to pinch my cheek, but since I had just put on makeup, she settled for tapping my forehead instead. Before long, Wenji came in to announce the arrival of the guests. Wenxing was hopping along behind her, earning several scoldings. The little girl's eyes welled up, but she dared not cry. I said, all right now, Wenxing is still young. Wenji, don't be too hard on her. Let her be lively. Dai cheers me up to see her happy. In my last life, after Wenji died, Wenxing grew up almost overnight and took her place as my chief maid, managing arrivals and farewells, ledgers, storage, and staff without ever giving me a moment's worry. Wenji pouted helplessly. I smiled as I watched Wenxing skip away. After the coming-of-age ceremony, I was finally considered an adult. My father presented me with a fine jade seal, my name engraved on the bottom. With this seal, you can mobilize all the Lin family shops, funds, and personnel. I blinked and tried to refuse, but my father continued. Take it. A father has to look after his daughter, doesn't he? I listened and obediently tucked it away. Zhao Xiunian gave me a pair of butterfly-shaped gold bangles, so lifelike that their wings actually fluttered, as if real butterflies had alighted upon a beauty. Do you like them? I nodded. Where did you find such a rare thing? I designed them myself and had the finest jewelry craftsmen in the capital make them. It took 3 attempts to get it right. On the back of each bangle, the character Wan was engraved. The calligraphy was so ugly it could not possibly be the work of a professional. I took his hand. His fingers were long, his palm warm and dry, and sure enough, there was a blister in the center of his left palm. All day he had deliberately kept that hand curled, never once opening it fully. My fingers traced the edges of the blister, but refused to press on it. Does it hurt? It doesn't, he said, turning his wrist. Just a burn. It'll be fine by tomorrow. A scar wouldn't look good. I took out a bottle of scar cream and applied it to his palm, then slipped the bottle into my own pouch. You've never been good at taking care of yourself. You'd use this once and forget it for days. From now on, come to the Lin Mansion every afternoon, and I'll apply it for you. We were already betrothed by imperial decree. There was no need to be overly guarded about gossip. Fine, he said, his eyes full of affection. Little Dr. Lin, I'm counting on you to take good care of me. Humph. I gave a playful sniff. Little Dr. Lin has the very best medical skills. His gaze burned bright as my voice softened. And I'll take the very best care of you too. A month after my coming of age, Zhao Xiunian came to say goodbye. He was headed to the northwest. I thought back to his past life, where he served as a frontline general his whole career. Clean service record, safe deployments to S.O. I told him. When you reach the northwest, don't be greedy for glory or rush into danger. Your safety comes first. That it's cold there. Dress warmly. That I made you some gloves. Be sure to bring them. Don't let your hands get chapped. And it's dry up there. Drink plenty of water. Sleep early and light enough candles so you don't strain your eyes. He listened patiently while I rambled on like a fretful old mother. And one more thing, I added sternly. Don't you go chasing after any girls up there. Or women, either. Zhao Xiunian had to fight back a laugh as he solemnly promised that no woman would be allowed within 10 paces of him. And right to me, I added, my voice sinking. My little ancestor, Wanner, please don't cry again, he said, wrapping his arms around me. I heard his voice rumbling above. 2 years at most. I will come back and marry you. He was going to the northwest to win his future, to earn the right to marry me. He said that when he returned, he would have the power to protect me. He said I would wear the phoenix crown and bridal finery, ride a scarlet-draped horse, and be married in grand style. That he said that by then I would no longer be Miss Lin, nor even Miss Zhao, but Zhao Xiunian's wife, the general's lawful spouse, the sole mistress of the Zhao general's mansion. I said yes, I will wait, but I will wait for you to come back, and I will don my phoenix crown and crimson veil, and marry in glory. The clatter of horse hooves faded. I watched Zhao Xiunian's figure disappear. I hated to see him go, but it was worth it. The very day I came of age, he had explained the court's factional alignments, who held power, where the wind was blowing, and the pros and cons of our position. Since the Lin and Zhao families had decided to abandon support for the third prince, we needed to establish good relations with another prince. Otherwise, the first thing Liu Sheng would do upon taking the throne was purge both clans. But we had waited too long to join the game. The older princes already had powerful maternal clans and noble houses backing them. If the Lins and Zhao stepped in now, at best we'd get scraps, and they might even carve us up and feed us to Liu Sheng as tribute. The 6th and 7th princes were still infants at their wet nurses' breasts. Only the 5th prince remained. My father closed his eyes and said nothing. I had no idea what he was thinking. Everything you said, it's all true? I nodded without a word. Then in that other life, I really wasn't much of a father, was I? He laughed through tears and shook his head. I let you and your mother down terribly. No wonder you didn't want to tell me. The tears streaming down his aged face suddenly unsettled me. Father, I don't blame you anymore. I pressed my head against his knee. He stroked my hair. In this life, I'll try to be a good father. At the very least, I have to fight for my Wanner. Father, I buried my face on his knee and sobbed quietly. You're the best, Father. Asterisk asterisk 15 asterisk asterisk. When the water lilies in the pond were just about to bloom, I came of age. I asked Anton, Jingjing's mother, to do the hair-pinning ceremony. She had been my mother's dearest friend, her eldest daughter, Jingjin, and I had played together as children, but then I lost my mother and she lost her daughter. She came to treat me as her own, even fonder of me than she was of Jingjing. Aunt, I called. Please, come in and sit. Wanner is a young lady now. She adjusted the hairpin on my head in the most natural way imaginable. Today your aunt has brought you something special. What kind of something special? I teased, trying to coax a smile. Drunken Immortal Pavilion's wine-marinated duck, hibiscus quartz rose cakes, or Mamma Mia's candied cherries? You, she tapped my head, half amused and half exasperated. Still such a child. She opened the sandalwood box in her hands. Inside was a complete set of kingfisher feather hair ornaments. I prepared this coming-of-age gift for you the day you were born. Over the years it grew a little faded, so the day before yesterday, I had it freshly cleaned. I clung to her. Juana loves it very much. She helped me put on each piece. Wearing such solemn jewelry for the first time felt a bit heavy, but fortunately I'd worn plenty in my other life and adjusted quickly. You're no longer a child, she said, carefully drawing my brows. When you marry, you must know propriety and rules. Being a daughter-in-law isn't easy. Don't give anyone cause for gossip. Aunt, I giggled. My future mother-in-law is my uncle's wife anyway. Well, just the person to catch you speaking ill of me. My uncle's wife walked in. What? Afraid I won't treat Juana well. She pretended to go after Anton. Let me tell you, you're not the only one who considers Juana her daughter. She's my daughter, too. Good thing she's marrying into your family. If you ever treat her poorly, I'll come storming over to make a scene. Just try it. See if I'm good to my daughter or not. Who can say? Mothers-in-law are often all talk. I just smiled bashfully as the two elders traded harmless jabs. Then my aunt turned to me. Juana, you tell us. Is your aunt treating you well? Aunt treats me wonderfully, of course. But when two mothers are sparring with words, a daughter can't side with either without breaking the other one's heart. You do know how to keep everyone even. Anton laughed, wanting to pinch my cheek, but mindful of the freshly applied rouge, she simply bent a finger and tapped my forehead. A short while later, Wenji came in to call us out, saying the guests had arrived. Wenxing bounced along behind her, earning herself several scoldings until she stood with tear-filled eyes, not daring to cry. I said, "That's enough. Wenxing is only little. Wenji, you don't need to be so strict with her. Let her be lively. Thy tea makes me happy to see." In my other life, after Wenji passed away, Wenxing seemed to grow up overnight and soon replaced her as my senior palace maid, handling visitors, checking accounts, managing the storehouses, and overseeing the palace staff without causing me the slightest worry. Wenji pursed her lips helplessly, and I watched, smiling, as Wenxing bounced off into the distance. Once the coming-of-age ceremony was complete, I was an adult. My father presented me with a fine jade seal, my name carved on the bottom. With this seal, you can mobilize all the Lin family shops, funds, and people. I fluttered my lashes, about to refuse, when he said, "Take it. Your father must protect you." I obediently tucked it away. Zhao Xiunian's gift was a pair of butterfly gold bracelets. The butterfly wings fluttered so lifelike that it seemed as if real butterflies had alighted for the beauty wearing them. Do you like them? I nodded. Where did you find such a novelty? I drew them myself. Of course that I had the craftsman at the capital's best jewelry shop make them. Took 3 tries to get them right. Etched on the back of the bracelets was a tiny character. Once the calligraphy was so ugly it surely couldn't have come from an artisan's hand. I took his hand. His fingers were long, his palm warm and dried out on his left palm. Sure enough, there was a patch where blisters had risen. He deliberately kept that hand curled all day, never opening it. My fingers circled around the blisters, but wouldn't touch the rawest part. Does it hurt? Not at all. He rotated his wrist to show me. It's just a little burn. It'll be fine tomorrow. If it leaves a scar, it won't look good. I pulled out a bottle of scar ointment, smoothed it onto his palm, and then tucked the bottle carefully away. You're too careless about yourself. You'd put it on one day and forget the next. From now on, you come to the Lin Manor every afternoon, and I'll apply the medicine. Ours was an imperial betrothal, so there was no need to purposely keep our distance, and no fear of idle gossip. All right. The boy's brows brimmed with fondness. Dr. Lin had better take my case seriously. Uffed. I pretended to spit. Dr. Lin's medical skill is top-notch. The youth's gaze burned bright, and my voice dropped to a whisper. I take you seriously most of all. **16***. In the second month after my coming of age, Zhao Xiunian came to say goodbye. He was leaving for the Northwest, and I remembered that in my other life he'd spent his whole career as Vanguard General. No great feats, no major failures. Always safe to so I told him. Once you're in the Northwest, don't chase glory or advance recklessly. Safety above all, that it's cold there. We're more layers that I've made you a few pairs of gloves. Remember to wear them. Don't let your hands crack open. It's dry in the Northwest. So, drink plenty of water to go to bed early. Light more candles in the evening so you don't strain your eyes. He listened patiently as I nattered like an old nursemaid. Also, when you're in the Northwest, don't go after any other women. I added fiercely, married ones neither. Zhao Xiunian laughed at that, and suppressed a grin as he swore that no other woman would be allowed within 10 paces of him. And, write to me from the Northwest. I lowered my head and spoke in a muffled voice. My little princess, my dear Lin Wan, why are you about to cry again? He pulled me into his arms. I heard the youth's voice above my head. 2 years at most, I'll come back and marry you for certain. He was going to the Northwest to win a future and come back to marry me. He said that once he returned, he'd have the means to protect me. He said that when he returned, I'd wear a phoenix crown and trailing rosy robes, a grand wedding procession stretching for miles. Married off in splendor, he said that then I wouldn't just be a Lin family young miss, nor a Zhao family cousin. I'd be Zhao Xiunian's wife, General Zhao's lawful wife, the one and only mistress of the general's manor. I said, all right, I'll wait for you. When you come back, I'll don the phoenix crown and trailing robes, and marry in splendor. The sound of hoofbeats faded into the distance. I watched Zhao Xiunian's figure until it vanished. That I would miss him, but it was worth it. On the very day I came of age, he had laid out for me the shifting winds among the court factions and weighed the pros and cons of the situation. Since the Lin and Zhao families had decided to abandon the third prince, we had to build ties with another prince. Otherwise, the moment Liu Sheng took the throne, his first act would be to purge both clans. But we had entered the field too late. The older princes already had powerful maternal clans and noble houses behind them. But if the Lins and Zhao stepped in now, at best we'd fight for scraps, and they might even parcel us up and offer us to Liu Sheng as tribute. The 6th and 7th princes were still nursing at their wet nurses' breasts. Only the 5th prince remained, the 14-year-old 5th prince. His maternal lineage was by no means lowly. His birth mother, noble consort Jia, was of the Wang clan of Heong, a 1,000-year-old aristocratic house. But she had passed away many years ago, and relations between the Wangs and the imperial family were poor. The family head, Wang Renfu, stubborn and old-fashioned, looked down on the present emperor, and, given his lineage, had the standing to do so. Consequently, he paid the 5th prince scant attention. The prince found favor with neither his father on high nor his mother's family below, and was young besides. Thus he remained unremarkable, but Zhao Xiunian said the 5th prince possessed great talent. He was simply biding his time, hiding his brilliance, not daring to stand out. With my father and Zhao Xiunian's support, the 5th prince had been ready to make a mark at court, but my father told him to wait. Wait until Zhao Xiunian seized control of the Northwestern Army. Then the fifth prince would have enough capital to truly shine. That I had met the fifth prince, Liu Sheng. He had far more sense than Liu Sheng. Knowing I was Zhao Xiunian's betrothed, he barely dared to spare me an extra glance. His every gesture and word carried an innate air of nobility, and he spoke with calm self-possession that put others at ease. That it wasn't smoothness, exactly, but he could attend to everyone around him, never leaving a single person neglected. Very good that I remembered that in my other life. He was the only one of Liu Sheng's brothers to be granted the title of Prince of the First Rank. Likely not a simple character either. **18***. Liu Sheng won back the emperor's favor in the spring of the second year. He presented the method of smallpox inoculation. The smallpox plague was rampant in the Great Zhou, carrying off children every spring. The Imperial Academy of Medicine had spent years searching for a remedy, but made no significant progress. Now, by offering the inoculation, Liu Sheng had solved the emperor's most pressing worry. That I sent someone to look into Liu Sheng's technique. That I in my other life, in the name of promoting the inoculation, he had insisted on testing it on our only child. Our son Pu'er hadn't survived. That technique had always been the darkest shadow in my heart. But what Wenji came back and described was different from the method that had killed my son. According to Liu Sheng's claims, the method had been refined several times. Now all you had to do was grind the scabs of a recovered patient into powder and blow it into a child's nose, and the inoculation would take. Every inoculated child survived. That autumn, the third Prince Liu Sheng, for his meritorious presentation of the inoculation, was appointed Crown Prince. Once Liu Sheng was named Crown Prince, a letter arrived from Zhao Xiunian in the northwest. It said, "Lin Wan, don't be afraid." I steadied myself immediately. I had always thought that living my life over again would let me change many things. Yet Liu Sheng still became Crown Prince. That night I dreamed again of my other life. The palace ladies of every rank clutching my hands, begging me to save them. That dream pressed down so heavily I couldn't breathe. After I woke, I sat stunned for a long while, until my wet nurse came in, and I finally came back to myself. It's all right, that I in this life. Someone is here to protect me. Zhao Xiunian had been in the Northwest over a year, climbing from an 8th-rank lieutenant to a 5th-rank vanguard general. He had mastered the secret techniques that the old General Zhuang had imparted. The enemy only knew him as the sole grandson of General Tiger Might, unaware that aside from the Zhao family saber style, he also commanded the Zhuang family spear style. The tactics that had once worked against General Tiger Might no longer availed them. Zhao Xiunian, frankly, played dirty. The battlefield is always the finest school for martial prowess and strategy. Before long, the name young General Zhao was known to everyone in the Northwest. That I really couldn't help but wonder how he had risen so fast in this life. After all, in our other life, he'd only ever reached Vanguard General and no further. Not long after, he wrote back. The letter said, "Lin Wan, drifting through life and carving out a future are two entirely different things." Carving out a future, my young man declared, in dead earnest, that he would carve out that future and return to Merrymead. He's been keeping that promise, step by step. **19***. The year after Liu Sheng was made Crown Prince, the Emperor betrothed him to Wang Xi, daughter of the Vice Minister of Revenue. Wang Xi, the very girl who had won first place at the Princess Shunning's plum viewing banquet. That same year, Zhao Xiunian made his name by taking the head of the Khan of the Northern D's 4th tribe. He was just 18. The emperor pronounced him possessed of the brilliant valor of Han Dynasty Hui Xubing, and, breaking precedent, appointed him general of the Western expedition. He came back to marry me, exactly as promised. The wedding was set for the 7th day of the 9th month. Once the date was fixed, Father confined me to the manor to embroider my wedding gown. In truth, I had finished stitching it a year earlier. Sister Sun often came to keep me company, and through her I came to know Lady Sun as well. Lady Sun was sharp-eyed that I only needed to drop a vague hint about that little palace maid we had glimpsed a few years back for her to realize that someone might be watching Sister Sun. Sister Sun quickly got betrothed to her childhood sweetheart, Zhang Yuanhui, the 3rd son of the Zhuang family, and Lady Sun never allowed her near the palace again. Now Sister Sun was helping me stitch odds and ends. I teased her. Sister Sun, have you finished your own wedding gown? Of course I have. She lowered her head, her ears flushing red, and refused to look at me. Sister, have you seen your fiancé lately? Betrothed couples were meant to keep a certain distance. People like me and Zhao Xiunian were bound to be laughed at behind our backs for shamelessness. But who cares? Of course we must keep our distance, silly. Sister Sun wouldn't play along. She turned away to embroider a pouch, yet the blush on her ears refused to fade. Sister, I hear the Zhuang family's 3rd son is brilliant, passed the provincial exams at a young age. Looks like you might marry a future top scholar. The color on her face was as vivid as fine rouge. Earlier that day, Zhang Yuanhui had come to visit my father, and though Sister Sun had claimed she'd come over to help me embroider, her thoughts were clearly elsewhere. When noon drew near, I knew 3rd young Master Zhuang would soon finish talking with my father, and Sister Sun grew restless. Smiling, I shooed her out of my room and pressed the little pouch she had just finished back into her hands. She returned a good while later, face still pink, lost in some silly days, so happy after seeing your fiancé, I teased merrily. Was he pleased with your gift? Oh, hush, she snapped back to her senses. Oh heavens, why did I give him that pouch? I hadn't even embroidered the border yet. Sister, don't worry. You'll have all the time in the world after you're married. Half annoyed, half mortified, she lunged to pinch my cheeks. I dodged, then tickled her right back, and the two of us wrestled until we collapsed, panting, side by side on the couch. In our other life, our closest moments had only ever been stacking our forehands together. We'd never dared to lie carelessly like this, like two uncouth sisters. How wonderful. In this life, we both get to marry the ones we love. ***20**** on the 15th of the 8th month, Zhao Xiunian rode back from the northwest, travel-worn and covered in dust. After greeting his grandmother and aunt, he vaulted straight over the wall into the Lin estate. Though it wasn't that the guards were slack, my father simply pretended not to see Lin Wan. He perched sideways on the wall, calling to me in the night that I couldn't make out his face, only his roguish posture, and I knew at once it was him. "You're back." I swallowed hard and managed to force out the words. "How did you get back so fast? It's at least half a month from the frontier to the capital." He dropped to the ground and walked toward me. An instant later I was wrapped in a broad, warm embrace. He must have bathed before coming. He smelled of soap and soapberries. "What's the hurry? Afraid you'd miss the wedding day?" I mumbled, but my head burrowed into his chest, so it came out half petulant, half pleading. "I wanted to see you." His voice was thick. "Missed you terribly." "Me too." I tightened my arms around him, and only then realized how much he'd grown in 2 short years. "Were you injured?" "Don't worry." He gave a low chuckle above my head. "I was careful if I came back with scars. The bride might find me repulsive." "Well, naturally, I want the handsomest groom possible." Cheeks burning, I hid in his arms. The word groom made me terribly shy. "What kind of handsome groom does Lin Wan want?" He kept teasing. A fair-skinned one? If I can't get pale again in half a month, he muttered to himself, and these hands aren't good enough for Wan Wan, then this general will just have to carry you off. One way or another, the bride is now in my arms that I'm not letting go. He curved an arm around my waist, and we simply stood holding each other. The autumn night held a chill, but I didn't feel it. Inside me, something was sprouting, a little sapling climbing and scratching at my heart, itching fiercely. Asterisk asterisk 21 asterisk asterisk after the 15th of the 8th month, I didn't see Zhao Xiunian again. My father didn't hesitate. He ordered his men to cover every wall Xiunian might scale and set up iron netting to keep us apart. Xiunian wasn't the clingy type, but he bombarded us with a letter every single day that he described every detail of preparing our bridal chamber, right down to what quilts and cushions they chose. He had splendid taste, selecting everything of the finest quality. Whenever he was unsure, he'd write to ask what I liked. Afraid I couldn't judge beauty from a distance, he even sent over samples for me to choose. His aunt trusted no maid to handle things properly and double-check that everything was spotless, and his grandmother trusted people even less. She simply summoned everyone for hours of moral instruction. The result was that even before I, the future mistress, entered the manor, the servants already knew I was held in the highest regard by the elders. Meanwhile, on the Lin's side, the courtyard bustled with preparations for my dowry. My father packed up all my mother's trousseau and threw in half the family shops besides the lavish dowry, with properties transferred under my name. A daughter backed by her maiden family stands strong as steel. Aunt Anne was especially generous. She gifted an enormous separate dowry, openly proclaiming, "This child might as well be my own flesh and blood." Lady Sun was invited to officiate as the ritual dresser, a woman blessed with living parents, thriving sons, and a marriage of over 20 years. The truly fortunate woman in every way. In a wonder second cousin chased after a life of true passion that I truly wondered how he had climbed so fast in this life. After all, in my previous life he'd only made it to Vanguard General. That he wrote back soon after, his letter saying, "Warner, drifting through life and fighting for a future are two different things." Fighting for a future. That young man spoke in all seriousness about fighting for a future so he could marry me. Step by step, he was keeping his promise. 19 In the second year after Liu Sheng was named crown prince, the emperor bestowed a marriage on him and Wang Ci, daughter of the vice minister of revenue. Wang Ci? Yes, the very girl who had taken first place at Princess Shunning's Plum Blossom Banquet. That same year, Zhao Xiunian won great renown by beheading the Khan of the Northern D's fourth tribe. He was only 18. The emperor said he had the flair of Han Dynasty's Hui Tsubing and made an exception by appointing him general who conquers the West. True to his word, he came back to marry me. The wedding date was set for the 10th day of the 9th month. Once the date was fixed, Father kept me confined to the estate to embroider my wedding dress. Truthfully, I had finished it a year ago. Sister Sun often came to visit, and through her I got to know Lady Sunday. Lady Sun was astute and perceptive that I merely hinted about a little palace maid we had once met, and she immediately understood that Sister Sun might have been targeted by someone. So Sister Sun was quickly betrothed to Zhang Yuanhui, the third son of the Zhuang family, her childhood sweetheart, and Lady Sun forbade her from entering the palace again. Now she came to help me with odds and ends that I teased her. "Have you finished your own wedding dress?" "Of course it's done." She lowered her head, revealing a deeply reddened ear, and ignored me. "Sister, have you seen your fiancé recently?" Engaged couples were supposed to keep a proper distance. Someone like me, who saw Zhao Xiunian so freely, would surely be laughed at behind my back for shamelessness. But who cared? Naturally, we must observe the proprieties, silly girl. Sister Sun turned away to embroider a pouch, but the blush on her ears would not fade. Sister, I hear that Zhang Sanlang is exceptionally gifted with words and has already passed the provincial exam at such a young age. Could my sister be about to marry a future Tanhua? The blush on her face was like the finest rouge. Today, Zhang Sanlang had come to visit my father. Sister Sun had come under the pretext of helping me so, but her heart wasn't here at all. As noon drew near, Zhang must have finished talking with father, and Sister Sun could barely sit still. Laughing, I pushed her out of my chambers, slipping into her hand the pouch she had just finished embroidering. That a long while later, she returned with a flushed face, still smiling dreamily to herself. Sister, so happy after seeing your fiancé? I teased. I wonder if he was pleased to receive your pouch. Pa! She snapped back to her senses. Oh dear, why did I give him that pouch? I haven't even embroidered the lace trim yet. Don't fret, sister. After you're married, you'll have all the time in the world to embroider. She was both angry and embarrassed and came over to pinch my cheeks that I couldn't dodge. So I tickled her back, we frolicked for a while, and finally lay side by side on the daybed. Out of breath, I in my past life. The closest we'd ever gotten was our 4 hands overlapping that we would never have dared to lie so improperly side by side, as we had in our maiden days. How wonderful that I in this life. We could both marry the men we loved. 20 On the 15th of the 8th month, Zhao Xiunian returned from the northwest, travel-worn. After paying his respects to grandmother and aunt, he boldly climbed over the wall into the Lin manor. Of course, the Lin guards were not that lax. Father was simply turning a blind eye. Wan. He sat sideways on top of the wall, calling to me that in the darkness I couldn't see his face clearly, but from that roguish posture I knew it was him. You're back. I choked out after holding it in for a long time. How did you get back so fast? The capital to the frontier takes at least half a month. He jumped down and walked toward me, and I was drawn into a broad, warm embrace. He must have bathed before coming, for he carried the faint scent of soapberry. Why the hurry? Afraid you'd miss the wedding, I murmured, but with my face buried in his chest, I sounded more coquettish than dignified. I wanted to see you. His voice was low. I missed you very much. Me too. I tightened my arms around his waist, suddenly realizing how much he'd grown in just 2 years. Did you get injured? Don't worry. His deep laugh rumbled above my head. I'm careful if I kept a scar. I'm afraid the bride might scorn me. Of course I want a very handsome groom. I blushed and murmured into his chest. The word groom was far too embarrassing. What kind of handsome groom does Wanner want? He still teased. A fair and tender one. TCH, he said to himself. If I can't turn fair again in these 2 weeks, and Wanner doesn't fancy me, then this general will just have to steal the bride. Anyway, now that the bride is in my arms, I'm never letting go. He locked his hands around my waist, and we held each other like that. The autumn night held a chill, but I didn't feel cold. That I only felt a budding sapling in my heart, its branches tickling me unbearably. 21 After the Mid-Autumn Festival, I didn't see Zhao Xiunian again. Father bluntly ordered the servants to chase, intercept, and block the young General Zhao from any attempt to scale the wall, erecting an iron rampart and a dragnet just to keep us apart. Zhao Xiunian wasn't one to cling, yet these days he sent letter after letter, detailing the entire arrangement of our bridal chamber, even describing exactly what kind of wedding quilts and mattresses we'd use. He was extravagant, wanting to buy the best of everything. If he couldn't decide, he wrote asking my preferences. Afraid I couldn't tell which one looked better, he even sent 2 samples for me to choose. Aunt was uneasy about the servants' work and personally inspected every item. Grandmother, even more uneasy, summoned everyone for a thorough scolding. In short, even before I, the young mistress of the Zhao family, had crossed the threshold, the household already knew how highly their masters regarded me. Over at the Lin Manor, preparations for my dowry were in full swing. Father made sure I took all of Mother's dowry, and he even transferred most of the Lin family shops under my name. Father said, "Take a girl with her maiden family to back her up, stand strong." Anton, my dear aunt, heaped in yet another huge portion of dowry. As if afraid people wouldn't know, she treated me as her own flesh and blood. Lady Sun volunteered to be the ritual dresser. She had both sons and daughters. Her parents and in-laws were still alive, and she and her husband had been sweetly married for over 20 years. Truly a blessed woman, and no wonder Sister Sun was bent on true love. The 10th day of the 9th month, an auspicious day. That day, the sky was exceptionally clear. I rose at the 5th watch, still a little drowsy, feeling it all too unreal. Lady Sun combed my hair, and my wet nurse applied delicate makeup. I was obedient, letting my aunts arrange me. Jingjing and Sister Sun chattered congratulations in my ear, and all the young ladies I had befriended came to add their tokens to my trousseau. I had no brother, so Father had long since written summoning his disciples back. They would send me off in the name of elder brothers when the auspicious hour approached. And firecrackers sounded from the front courtyard. He had come for me. Wenji covered my head with the great red bridal veil. Everyone crowded around me as I rose. Everything I could see was a sea of red, and only then did I come to my senses, tears streaming down, that I was going to marry him. I really could marry him. My fingers dug into my palm. The pain sobered me. This wasn't a dream. My aunts assumed I was reluctant to leave Father and comforted me. But even after Zhao Xiunian entered Qinglan courtyard, I was still shedding tears. He understood my heart, that I was still afraid. Afraid that it wouldn't be Zhao Xiunian walking in, but Liu Sheng. Wanner, his hands grasped mine, the warmth giving me strength. "It's me. I've come to marry you." His thumb moved, rubbing the marks I had dug into my own palms. He whispered in my ear, "This is not a dream." It wasn't a dream. All that had happened in the past life was over. I nodded, too choked up to speak, and could only hold his hands tightly in return, telling him my heart. His palms were warm and broad, just large enough to envelop mine. Hand in hand, he led me, blind to the path before me, and I surrendered myself to him. We would go to the front hall to bid farewell to my father. It wasn't according to custom, but no one objected, because those standing behind me all wanted me to be happy. 22 My father sat in the chief's seat, struggling to maintain his usual dignity, but the rims of his reddened eyes betrayed him. Though I couldn't see his expression, I stepped forward and held his hand. Father patted the back of my hand, wanting to give me instructions yet unable to speak. That I remembered how, in my past life, he had lectured me about womanly virtues, speech, bearing, and work. Before I could say a word, he spoke. "If you ever feel wronged in the future, remember that Father will still back you up." Weeping, I nodded, gave my father a solemn kowtow, and was carried onto the bridal sedan chair by my elder martial brothers. The festive music struck up again. Zhao Xiunian rode a tall horse at the front, and the sedan chair was lifted, swaying its way toward the Zhao residence. After 2 streets, we arrived. The anticipated kicking of the sedan door did not happen. Instead, a hand with well-defined knuckles reached in. I placed my hand on it, and let him lead me out. We stepped over the fire basin, bowed to heaven and earth, and were escorted into the bridal chamber. The young fellows around raised a clamor. All familiar faces, yet they shouted to see the bride. Zhao Xiunian fought off 10 at once and shooed them all out. Outside the door, the fellows refused to settle down, banging on the door and shouting to make Zhao Xiunian drink. "Wait for me, I'll be quick." He squeezed my hand before leaving. He didn't make me wait long. That as night began to fall, he came back right on time to lift the bridal veil. The moment he stepped into the chamber, the bridegroom, who had been slumping on others, suddenly straightened up as if nothing had happened, drawing cries of cunning. But he paid them no mind and carefully lifted my veil. The young man's eyes held starlight, reflecting my face. He stood there, spellbound. I was burning with embarrassment and lowered my head first, averting my gaze. The onlookers chuckled and pushed him, saying he was stunned silly by the bride. Only then did he come to, breaking into a huge smile like a boy in first love when we drank the nuptial wine. His hand trembled even more than mine. After eating the undercooked dumplings, the crowd began to tease the newlyweds. Some wicked fellow came up with the idea of dangling a grape by a thread for the two of us to eat together. I was at a loss. Zhao Xiunian already took the grape in his mouth and transferred it to mine. Hardly any juice passed through, yet it nearly choked me. The crowd roared with laughter. This time I was so mortified I wished I could put the veil back on. Zhao Xiunian, thick-skinned, started shooing everyone out, not even leaving Wenji. At last we were alone in the bridal chamber, and only then did I take a good look around. The entire room was arranged exactly as I liked. Everywhere I looked was festive red. The thick dragon and phoenix candles, as big as an arm, would burn all night, and the bed was strewn with dried fruits, peanuts, longans, and more. I turned my head to look around, stubbornly refusing to look at the young man approaching step by step. His gaze was so intense I couldn't ignore it. "Wanner," he said, stopping right in front of me. My face felt on fire, and I had no idea what to say. Then his face drew closer, and my mind went blank, until the wetness on my lips made me belatedly realize what was happening. "You look especially beautiful tonight," he breathed against my ear, his warm breath scalding my earlobe that I tried to pull away. But he pressed me down onto the bed. With one long arm, he trapped me between himself and the mattress, our noses nearly touching, an intimate atmosphere spreading that my heart felt like it would stop. In that supremely tender moment, a peanut under my back suddenly dug into my waist. "Ow!" I protested. That I shot him an accusatory look. He quickly helped me up and called Wenji in to remove my makeup, while he meticulously cleared the bed of all the dried fruits. Once I shed the heavy phoenix crown and the elaborate bridal gown, I finally relaxed. Leaning back in the chair, Wenji thoughtfully rubbed my shoulders, but at some point, the hands behind me changed. "I'm sorry, Wanner," he apologized as he kneaded my shoulders. "This is my first marriage. I don't have much experience." His hands wandered lower and lower until they reached my waist, and then he lifted me up entirely. We ended up face to face, holding each other. I let out a startled yelp and instinctively wrapped my arms around his neck. His lips pressed down on mine, swallowing the rest of my cry. And then, half coaxed, half tricked, I found myself on the bed again, this time thoroughly cleaned, pinned between him and the bed frame. Our noses touched as his kisses traveled from my forehead downward, soft yet deliberate. His lips traced over my body, inch by inch, like a most devout worshiper. The bed was soft, the room warm, and his movements so gentle that I relaxed, my eyes half closing. Between sleep and waking, his fingers brushed over me, and my garments peeled open like lotus petals, one after another, until a full-blossomed sleeping lotus emerged. What happened next? Well, in the interplay of light and shadow, someone coaxed me into undoing his belt, and his sword slid from its sheath. conquering fields and overrunning all, leaving no stone unturned. The great red wedding candles flickered on, and the beautiful couple on the bed tumbled beneath the covers. Even the finest canopy bed creaked and swayed to the rhythm. The one on top wept and begged for mercy, only to be soothed into. Continuing with darling and sweetheart. Outside, the moon bashfully hid behind clouds, and the birds took flight, as if pretending to have seen nothing at all. 23 The next morning, I had to get up early. Forcing myself to stay composed, I had Wenji fix my hair into a married woman's bun and change me into a vermilion new dress. Soon, I'd have to go to the main hall to pay my respects. Truth be told, my legs were trembling. The culprit behind this traipsed obediently behind me, rubbing his nose and not daring to rush me. If I said up, he wouldn't lie down. If I said change clothes, he'd comply without a word. Since returning from the northwest, he'd tanned considerably, and the boyish charm had given way to something more vigorous, but he still looked very handsome in red. Supported by Wenji, I slowly made my way to the main courtyard, a train of maids behind me, and my mother-in-law to be, who dared not hurry me. Along with Zhao Xiunian, we first paid respects to grandmother. Seeing us, she laughed so hard she could barely speak, stuffing a thick stack of silver notes into a red envelope in a here, just take it and spend it kind of way. Born from her impoverished upbringing, she couldn't think of a better way to show her love for me that I accepted the red packet, and she shooed me off, telling me to go greet my mother-in-law right away. She was already waiting in the main hall for us, and no need to explain. The moment she saw my condition, she shot a stern glance at Zhao Xiunian, accepted my ceremonial tea, and told me to sit. She brought out a golden jade-inlaid headpiece, her most treasured dowry item that I in my previous life. She had gifted it to me along with my wedding preparations. In this life, that same headpiece landed in my hands that I took it, and my nose stung. Mother, don't cry, she said, gently wiping my tears. I had no daughters of my own, so for a long time, I'd already thought of you as one. Now, married to my son, you've truly become mine. This headpiece was always meant for a daughter. It belongs to you. Thank you, mother. I sniffled. No more crying. She took my hand. I made some soup. Drink it quickly, then go back to your courtyard for a nap. She filled a bowl for me that I stood to take it, but she pushed me back into my seat, insisting I drink it while it was hot. Zhao Xiunian got no soup, though he didn't seem to mind. Since the morning, he had been lightly scolded by all 3 women of the household, and now sat silently next to his mother, knowing better than to talk back. He could only politely finish his meal. After breakfast, mother went to chant sutras, and I was sent back to our little courtyard for a nap. Zhao Xiunian quietly left to pay his respects at General Zhuang's mansion. When I woke again, it was afternoon, but there was another person in the bed. This man didn't normally nap, but he had taken up a military strategy book and sat on the bed, turning the pages gently so as not to wake me. Why aren't you reading in the study? The light here isn't good, I asked, still groggy from sleep and too tired to get up. The study lacks a beautiful wife, he arched an eyebrow, and a fragrant, soft companion is far more comfortable. Books have their own beauty. You know that it seems General Zhao wasn't paying attention to his reading. I humphed lightly and closed my eyes again. I was still sleepy, but this infuriating man leaned in and spoke, his warm breath brushing my face. Don't be jealous, wife. What I'm reading is military tactics. If there's any beauty in the book, she'd likely be built like Zhang Fei. He shed his outer robe and lay down again beside me. Slipping an arm around my waist, I stopped him cold. I'm still sore. Don't worry, he said, holding me. I just want to lie next to you like this for a bit." His arms were so warm that I found myself snuggling closer, and before I knew it, I had dozed off again. The next time I opened my eyes, it was already dark. The room was dim with the scent of incense. Awake, he was still lying there, arms holding me in place. What time is it? Not yet 7 in the evening. How did I sleep so long? I started to rise but couldn't move because of his heavy arms. I said I'd have dinner with Mother tonight. I sent someone to the main courtyard earlier. I told Mother we weren't coming. She could start without us. And she scolded me for being reckless. I rolled my eyes at him indignantly. If you were awake, you could have gone to dine with her. Why were you still lying in bed? There's such a thing as proper manners, you know. My wife hadn't woken. I dared not stir. He whispered shamelessly, still close. It's cold in autumn, and you kept burrowing into my arms for warmth. My heart aches for our delicate little Wanner, so I stayed still, warm as a blanket, and now here you are, reproaching my etiquette. What a disappointment I am. If showing basic manners means letting my dear wife freeze, then I'd have little use for such manners. He rubbed his chin, mustering a pitiful grievance that I blushed enough to thump him, but trapped within his embrace, I had no bite. Reluctantly, I buried my face deep in his chest and hid. Zhao Xiunian, just see how flinty our little Wan is, he went on teasing, his voice hovering. When it suits her, she calls me brother. When it doesn't, I'm just Zhao Xiunian. A true wonder. At this, his insolence stretched too far that I tried to free myself, but still locked in his embrace, I could only try to pinch his mischievous tongue, though that kind of play only drew us into a swell of quiet intimacy, tangled together on the sheets that I was flustered and annoyed, so I flung myself up, resolving to ignore him entirely, but his arm whipped around and strapped me snugly back into the quilt. It's cold at night. I'll fetch your dress, my lady wife. In a plain tunic, he got out of bed and fetched my skirt from the wooden press. The house wasn't heated yet, but a brazier had been lit. Zhao was always careless, but now he carefully brought the clothes, his fingers brushing my neck as he helped me dress. His touch sent a tingling shiver down my spine, and I looked up to find him staring at me. What are you looking at? With a slight stumble, he steadied himself, a flush creeping across his face. And then he swept us both into the quilts, covering us in warmth and silence. We dressed each other, piece by piece. And when we were finally upright and neat, we headed together to the main hall, perfectly composed. The meal with Mother was warm and filled with gentle talk. We sat together, the family tranquility settling around us, and I felt safe, content, truly at home. Everything was arranged to my liking, a blaze of joyous, vivid red everywhere I looked, arm-thick dragon and phoenix candles never once guttered. The bed was scattered with dried fruits, peanuts, longans, and the like that I twisted around to study every corner of the room, deliberately refusing to look at the boy advancing toward me, one step at a time. His gaze burned too fiercely to ignore. Wanner. He stopped right in front of me. My face flamed, but no words came. His features loomed closer until my mind went blank. Only when wet warmth touched my lips did I belatedly understand what was happening. You are especially beautiful today. He breathed hot against my ear that I felt my ears catch fire and tried to shrink away, but he pressed me down onto the bed. His long arms caged me between him and the mattress. Our noses touched. An intimate, heady atmosphere thickened between us. My heart nearly stopped until a peanut jabbed me painfully in the back. Ouch. I shot him a look of fierce accusation that he hurriedly pulled me up. When Ji was summoned to help me remove my makeup, while Zhao Xiunian meticulously cleared the dried fruit from the bed. Once I shed the heavy phoenix crown and stripped off the intricate, exquisite wedding robes, I could finally relax a little that I leaned against a chair, while Wenji considerately rubbed my shoulders at a teasome point, without my noticing. The hands on my shoulders changed. "Sorry, Wanner," he murmured as he massaged. "First time getting married that I'm still learning." His hands pressed lower and lower, down to my waist, and then he simply lifted me. We stood face to face, wrapped around each other. I gasped and instinctively looped my arms around his neck. His lips claimed mine domineeringly, swallowing the rest of my startled cry. Next, I was coaxed and half-tricked onto the bed, this time immaculately cleared, and pinned again between him and the mattress. Our noses brushed. His kisses traveled from my forehead downward, gentle and reverent. His lips roamed my body, inch by inch, like a worshipper paying homage to his most devout. The bed was soft, the room warm. His touch was so tender it lulled my eyes shut, half asleep. I felt his fingers brush over me, and my clothes opened like lotus petals, one by one, until the night-blooming lily unfurled completely. What happened next? Next, in the dim half-light, someone coaxed me into loosening his sash. Then he unsheathed his sword, stormed the city, and left no armor intact. The great red candles burned on. The perfect couple on the bed tossed and turned, their fine canopy bed creaking with the motion. The girl pleaded tearfully, but he soothed her with endearments, "Sweetheart, my heart," and kept going. Outside, birds took flight. The moon, blushing, hid behind clouds, pretending it heard nothing at all. 23 We had to rise early the next day. I forced myself to appear composed, as Wenji dressed my hair in a married woman's style and helped me into a new crimson gown. Soon I would have to go to the front courtyard to pay respects. In truth, my legs were trembling. The culprit of my discomfort followed me meekly, rubbing his nose, not daring to rush me. Whatever I told him to do, get up, change clothes, he obeyed without a murmur. Since returning from the northwest, he had darkened under the sun. The jade-faced youth had gained a dashing, heroic edge, but he still looked wonderful in red. Leaning on Wenji, I headed to the front courtyard, trailed by a flock of maids, matrons, and Zhao Xiunian, who dared not hurry me along. First we visited grandmother. She beamed at the sight of us, barely able to contain her joy, and stuffed a thick stack of banknotes into a red envelope for me. Born to humble circumstances, to her there was no better way to show love than with money. I accepted the red envelope, and she shooed me off to greet my mother-in-law. Mother was waiting in the main hall. One look at me, and she understood everything. She threw a fierce glare at Zhao Xiunian, received my tea, and bade me sit. She brought out a headpiece of gold filigree set with jade, her most cherished bridal treasure. In my previous life, she had given it to me as a wedding gift. In this life, that headpiece had still found its way into my hands. I took it, my nose stinging. "Mother, why cry?" She gently dried my tears. "I never had a daughter, so I always regarded you as one. Now that you've married my son, you truly are my daughter. I always meant this headpiece for a daughter. It belongs to you." "Thank you, mother." I sniffled. "No more tears." She took my hand. "I've made soup. Drink it, then go back and get some rest." She ladled soup and set it before me. I started to rise to receive it, but she pressed me back into my seat and insisted I drink it while it was hot. Zhao Xiunian got none. He wasn't annoyed. Since early morning he'd been scorned many times over by the 3 women of the household, so he now stood to the side in silence, obediently eating his breakfast. After the morning meal, Mother went to chant sutras. I was shooed back to our little courtyard to catch up on sleep, while Zhao Xiunian trudged off to General Zhuang's residence for instruction. When I awoke again, It was already afternoon. A man had joined me in bed. He wasn't in the habit of napping. He had brought a military treatise and sat reading. Afraid of waking me, he turned the pages with exaggerated care. Why not read in the study? The light here is poor, I mumbled, still limp with sleep, in no hurry to rise. No beautiful woman in the study, he said, arching a brow. Nothing beats nestling against warm, soft jade. They say a book holds its own beauties. Clearly, young General Zhao isn't paying it proper attention. I huffed and closed my eyes, thoroughly weary, but this nuisance leaned in close again, his warm breath fanning my face. Don't be jealous, wife. Your husband is reading a book of strategy. If there were a beauty inside, she'd likely have the build of Zhang Fei. He shed his outer robe and lay down beside me, his left hand resting on my waist. Before he could do anything, I stopped him. I'm still sore. Don't worry, he said, wrapping his arm around me. I just want to lie here with you. His embrace was too warm, so warm that I burrowed closer, and before I knew it, I had drifted off again. When I next opened my eyes, it was dark outside. The room was pitch black. Awake? He was still holding me. What time is it? Not yet 7. How did I sleep so long? I tried to sit up, but his arm held me fast. I promised we'd have dinner with Mother tonight. I sent someone to the main courtyard to say we'd be late, and to ask Mother not to wait. And Mother scolded me roundly for being inconsiderate. I shot him a glare. Since you were awake, you should have gone to dine with Mother. Why are you still lying here? Have you no manners at all? How dare I move with my lady still asleep? He sounded utterly unrepentant. Autumn is growing cold. You kept burrowing into my arms. Worried that our delicate Wanner might feel a chill, I lay perfectly still, serving as your quilt. Yet now that you're awake, you scold your husband for lacking manners? He rubbed his chin. Since etiquette does nothing but freeze our Wanner, this husband can do without it. I blushed furiously and tried to swat him, but entangled in his embrace, I had no leverage. I buried my face in his chest. Zhao Xiunian, see how heartless our Wanner is, he teased. When you need something, it's Nianji. When you don't, it's Zhao Xiunian. Though we were alone, I was so mortified I wanted to cover his mouth. I had no idea he'd been this glib in our past life. But on the bed there was no room to maneuver. We were already intertwined. That I reached to silence him, and he made no attempt to dodge. The whole thing looked like nothing so much as a playful, intimate tussle between a married couple. Mortified and irritated, I gave up and made to leave the bed. He simply stretched out an arm, reeled me back, and wrapped the quilt tightly around me. The night air's cold. Let your husband fetch your clothes. Clad only in his inner robe, he padded barefoot to the wardrobe. The weather hadn't yet called for the floor heating, but Zhao Xiunian always walked around barefoot. I made a mental note to ask when to lay down a rug later. Lost in thought, I only noticed he'd returned when his cool fingertip tapped my nose. What's my wife thinking about? I glanced at his bare feet. He followed my gaze, ducked his head guiltily, and hurried to shove his feet into his shoes. That I dressed myself slowly in my outer garment, not getting the least bit chilled. Only when we were both properly dressed did we head toward the main courtyard. Mother saw us approaching hand in hand and smiled contentedly. She quickly ordered soup to be served. That I won't enumerate every dish, but each had been prepared with her careful attention. After dinner, we chatted with Mother deep into the night. When it was time to leave, she pulled Zhao Xiunian aside and lectured him in a low voice that I couldn't make out the words, but I could guess, and I pretended not to notice while blushing. She leaned against the main hall's doorframe, watching us go, repeatedly, calling out for us to walk slowly. The moonlight was lovely that night, Zhao Xiunian held my hand as we strolled leisurely back. "Wanner," he said, squeezing my hand. His mood seemed a little subdued. "When we have time later, let's spend more of it with Mother." I could tell. Today she was truly happy. My maternal uncle had died early and never tasted the bridal tea I served Diane life. He had been extremely fond of me. If he knew I'd married into the Zhao family, he would have been overjoyed. After Uncle passed, Aunt never remarried. She stayed to uphold the Zhao household, managing its affairs, serving elders, raising the young son, strong and self-reliant, virtuous and dignified. I tightened my grip on his hand, and long speeches were needed. We understood each other's hearts. "I was thinking," I said, feigning lightness. "In the future, we could have several children. At least 2 daughters. Mother longs most for daughters," I said, swinging our clasped hands. "With 2 little granddaughters, she won't know which one to dote on more. Just imagine, one on each side of her." I gestured, both clinging to Grandma and acting spoiled. One wants sweets, the other wants to pick flowers, keeping Mother so busy she won't know what to do that if she hugs one, the other won't have it. If she hugs the other, the first one won't have it. I spoke very softly. Suddenly, he pulled me tight into his embrace. Silent, his Adam's apple bobbed a few times. "Wanner, thank you." I wrapped my arms around his waist. Everything we felt, we said without words. 24 After the 7-day wedding leave, Zhao Xiunian had to rise early every day. The emperor entrusted him with the southeast garrison outside the capital, and he spent his days shuttling between the Zhao residence and the encampment, utterly worn. These days, tension gripped the imperial court. The emperor was aging. Crown Prince Liu Sheng, leveraging the experience of his previous life, had grown ever more entrenched. Now, however, the 5th prince, Liu Zhe, was gradually distinguishing himself. Frightened by the crown prince's power, the emperor suppressed Liu Sheng at every turn. The 5th prince's sudden prominence caught the emperor's eye, so he began fostering the 5th prince as a counterweight, even going so far as to hand the southeast garrison to Zhao Xiunian for my father. After a year or 2 of leisurely life, he was summoned back into service, this time as Minister of Revenue. My father's hair had turned noticeably grayer from worry. The left Vice Minister of Revenue, you see, was the Crown Prince's father-in-law, the father of future Crown Princess Wang Xi. They had not yet married, however, because Wang Xi's mother had passed away. For now, Liu Sheng remained calm and unhurried. On one hand, he played the devoted suitor to his betrothed, frequently visiting the Wang household with warm gestures. That on the other, he curried favor among courtiers, building a reputation for virtue and ability. Recalling my past life, I knew the emperor would die in the spring of the year after next, just over a year from now. That if Liu Sheng could hold steady and maintain his advantages, he would ascend the throne without trouble. That we did not have much time left. I remembered that in my previous life, the emperor had died of a stroke, and that stroke had been triggered when the 2nd prince's affair with a palace consort came to light. The 2nd prince was born to consort Qin, whose maternal clan held little sway. The prince himself was of mediocre talent, but the emperor doted on consort Qin, and the 2nd prince's wife was the Duke of Zhuang's legitimate daughter. With the Duke commanding 300,000 crack troops in support, the 2nd prince still had a shot at the throne. I paced back and forth in my room, calculating. The 1st prince was out of contention by reason of disability. The 4th prince had died young. The 6th and 7th princes were still too small. Only the 2nd prince, the crown prince, and the 5th prince remained in the race. Having been reborn, Liu Sheng knew every detail of his previous life. That would make things far easier for him. But what if events didn't unfold as he expected? He had once been emperor himself. His pride ran deep. How could he endure being marginalized and suppressed without striking back? He was biding his time, waiting for next July, when the second prince's affair with a palace consort would be exposed. The emperor would have a stroke, the second prince would be placed under house arrest, and he would seize the throne like a thunderbolt. But what if, come the following spring, the emperor was still alive, even healthier than before? What if the emperor's constitution proved so robust that he lasted another 10 or 20 years? Could Liu Sheng wait that long? I circled the room, my lips curving upward, my eyes icy. Could he wait? Hotpoint 25. The new year arrived, and the emperor's health declined further at last. Liu Sheng could no longer restrain himself. He began making covert moves within the palace. The Zhao family's reach far exceeded my imagination, or rather, Zhao Xiunian's capabilities were not nearly as unremarkable as I had assumed. On the 7th of March, Zhao Xiunian came home to tell me that Liu Sheng planned to denounce the second prince. The next day, I sent a visiting card to the Duke of Zhengguo's manor and spent the day admiring cherry blossoms with the Duchess. The 15th of March, the Grand Court Assembly. After exchanging a few pleasantries with his ministers, the emperor opened the discussion on the spring imperial examinations. As the debate grew heated, a young eunuch burst into the hall of heavenly worship, announcing that the second prince had been caught in an illicit affair with Consort Yu, a low-ranking palace lady. Discovered in the act by Consort Qi, the Empress deemed the matter too grave to handle alone and requested the emperor's judgment. The head of the Imperial Medical Academy examined Consort Yu and found her nearly 3 months pregnant. Bear in mind, Consort Yu had only been granted the emperor's favor once since entering the palace, a lowly, inconspicuous consort. Her pregnancy was a direct slap to the emperor's face. Enraged, the emperor ordered the second prince and Consort Yu to be brought to the hall. Once there, Consort Yu wailed and wept, giving the emperor a splitting headache. Crown Prince Liu Sheng rebuked her for immorality, accusing her of sowing chaos in the inner palace. But Consort Yu countered between sobs. On New Year's Eve, she had been violently assaulted and impregnated, and she had clung to life only to seek justice. The emperor's fury mounted. Consort Yu produced a brocade pouch, claiming she had torn it from her attacker during the struggle and begging the emperor to investigate. The pouch was ordinary enough, but the embroidery pattern was reserved exclusively for imperial princes. The needlework was of a style practiced in the palace, and the only person who used this specific technique was the mother of the third prince. Liu Sheng's face drained of color. Consort Yu drove the dagger deeper. Your Majesty, I saw it clearly. That man had a small red mole on his left shoulder, about the size of a sesame seed. I would never mistake it. With that, she dashed her head against a pillar and died on the spot. The hall fell deathly still. The second prince knelt ramrod straight, demanding that physicians be summoned to prove his innocence. The head of the Imperial Medical Academy took his pulse. His diagnosis: the second prince was infertile. As the assembled officials murmured in disbelief, the second prince ripped open his robes at the left shoulder, revealing unblemished skin. Liu Sheng clenched his jaw. How could he dare disrobe? On his own left shoulder sat that very red mole. The infuriated emperor ordered the crown prince confined to his quarters. That day, Zhao Xiunian returned home very late. Though everything had proceeded according to our plan, every step had been gut-wrenchingly tense, enough to make one hold their breath. He had spent the entire day on a knife's edge, terrified that a single misstep would lead to catastrophe. Exhausted, he came home, closed his eyes, rested his head on my shoulder, and refused to budge. That I didn't push him away, that I let him lean there in silence for a long while. The second prince was mediocre. A frivolous, womanizing good-for-nothing with no real ambition for the throne. Besides, the Duke of Zhengguo's estate was already severing ties with him. It was rumored that the princess was on the verge of divorcing him. The second prince was no longer a threat. That left only Liu Sheng. What happened today would not shake Liu Sheng's foundation. No matter how wary the emperor might be, he would not depose his own crown prince over a mere consort. After all, without solid evidence, a single pouch and a red mole were not enough to condemn a prince. Especially a capable, deeply entrenched crown prince. I had never intended to bring down Liu Sheng with this. Stirring him into action was enough, I pondered. I idly traced my fingers along Zhao Xiunian's spine. Perhaps I was too distracted, for he caught my hand, lifted me onto his lap in one swift motion, and held me tight in a fierce embrace. I understood his anger and pent-up resentment. In this lifetime, despite a few rough patches, I had still smoothly married him. I wondered, in that previous life, without me, what kind of political power had Zhao Xiunian built on his own? He would have forgotten me, married, and had children, I supposed. Who would his wife have been? They would have shared mutual respect and affection, a loving couple that he would have held a beauty in his arms, become the great Yi dynasty's most steadfast pillar, risen to the highest rank, and wielded power over the court. Then, would he have remembered me at all in his midnight dreams? No matter, Dai was enough that I remembered him. In this lifetime, he had me. I buried my head in his chest, racking my brain for how to comfort him. But he suddenly pushed me back and stared at me wordlessly. Wanner. I answered warily. Before I could react, he pinned me against the wall, trapping me between his body and the wall. I almost laughed in despair. Did the two of us have some unresolved karmic entanglement with walls in our past lives? But the mood was charged. He tilted my chin up with his fingers, his long lashes casting shadows as his body-warm breath fanned my skin. His grip was firm as he forced my head up. I had no time to evade before his mouth descended on mine. This kiss was different from everyone before it. Aggressive, possessive, storming every corner. I gasped for air, my head spinning. Yet he only granted me a fleeting breath before kissing me again. Ruthlessly, my spine turned to water. Panting, I clung to him, and he swept me up in his arms, carrying me to the canopy bed. The bed groaned solidly. He cushioned the back of my head with his hand, so I wouldn't knock against the frame. Pinning me down, he leaned close to my ear and whispered, low and intense, only me. Even in an illusory dream, he was forcing me to promise. Only me. Only me, all right. His tone held a plead. My heart softened involuntarily. Following his lead, I nodded meekly. Only Nianji. Then he kissed me again, this time tenderly, gingerly, as though afraid I might shatter. The last thing I registered before drifting off was him still moving. When I woke the next morning, he was sitting up beside me, painting. A swath of silk was spread beneath me, and my hair cascaded loose. And he was painting me. He was renowned as a master of calligraphy and painting. Though we'd been husband and wife in my last life, I had never had the nerve to ask him to paint my portrait. Now I had one. But he wasn't painting me. The woman in the picture had glistening, tearful eyes, lashes beaded with droplets, looking utterly wronged. It's all just, I blushed. What's the point of painting that? He didn't answer, just put the painting away and started on the sheet beneath it, the tip of his brush landing on a small red mole. Of course, he had a red mole on his left shoulder. Wanner. The Wanner he had repeated countless times in his heart. Done, he set the brush down and wrapped his arms around me from behind. Together we looked at the painting. In it, she had a red mole on her collarbone. You have to carry me with you for a lifetime. This is my mark. I was utterly spent before he finally allowed me to rest. My father's hair had turned white from worry, for the Vice Minister of Revenue was the Crown Prince's father-in-law, father of the future Crown Princess, Wang Xi. But because Wang Xi's mother had passed away, the two of them had not yet married. Liu Sheng was unhurried, while playing the devoted suitor to his intended Crown Princess Wang Xi. Paying warm visits to the Wang household, he also rallied court officials to his side, earning a fine reputation for virtue and talent I calculated in my past life. The emperor died in the spring of the year after next, little more than a year from now, as long as Liu Sheng kept things steady and preserved his advantage, he was certain to ascend the throne. Time was running short for us that I remembered. The emperor had died of a stroke, and the stroke was brought on by the second prince's illicit affair with a palace consort. The second prince was born of Consort Qin. Consort Qin's maternal family was of little influence, and the second prince himself was rather mediocre. But Consort Qin was deeply favored by the emperor, and the second prince's wife was the daughter of the Duke of Jinghua, who commanded a force of 300,000 soldiers. With that backing, the second prince had a real chance at the throne that I paced back and forth in my room, turning the possibilities over and over. The first prince was crippled and had no hope of contending. The fourth prince had died young. The sixth and seventh princes were far too young. That left only the second prince, the crown prince, and the fifth prince with the standing to fight for the throne. Since Liu Sheng had been reborn, every detail of the previous life was crystal clear to him. Naturally, he could handle things with ease. But what if events veered beyond his expectations? He had been an emperor before, after all. His pride was immense. How could he possibly endure being slighted and pushed around without a ripple? He was simply biding his time until July of the following year, when the second prince's affair with the palace consort would be exposed. The emperor would suffer a stroke in his fury, and the second prince would be thrown into prison. Then Liu Sheng would reap the spoils and ascend the throne. But what if, in the spring of the year after next, the emperor was still alive? Healthier even. What if the emperor was robust enough to live another 10 or 20 years without trouble? Would Liu Sheng still be able to hold back? I circled the room, a cold smile curling the corners of my mouth. Could he hold back? Hotpoint 25. After the new year began, the emperor's health grew visibly worse, and Liu Sheng finally lost patience. He started moving in secret within the palace. The Zhao family's influence was far greater than I'd imagined. Or rather, Zhao Xiunian's abilities were far less mediocre than I'd assumed. That on the 7th day of the 3rd month, Zhao Xiunian returned and told me Liu Sheng was preparing to impeach the second prince. The next day, I sent a visiting card to the Jinghua Duke's residence and spent the day admiring cherry blossoms with the Duchess. The 15th of the 3rd month, a grand court assembly. After the emperor exchanged a few pleasantries, discussion turned to the spring imperial examinations. Just as the debate was at its most heated, a young eunuch burst into Fengtian Hall in panic, announcing that the second prince had been caught in an affair with Yu Kairan, caught in the act by Qi Jiu. The empress had deemed the matter too grave to handle on her own and begged His Majesty to decide. The chief physician of the Imperial Academy of Medicine was summoned and confirmed that Yu Kairan was nearly 3 months pregnant. All the palace knew that Yu Kairan had only been favored by the emperor once since entering the palace. Such nameless, low-ranking consorts filled the rear palace by the dozens. For one of them to suddenly appear with a pregnancy was a direct slap to the emperor's imperial dignity. Enraged, the emperor summoned the second prince and Yu Kairan to appear before him in Fengtian Hall. That why Yu Kairan entered weeping and wailing, giving the emperor a throbbing headache. Crown Prince Liu Sheng accused her of being unchaste and disrupting the inner palace. But Euchiron claimed that she had been violated at the New Year's banquet, that the pregnancy was forced upon her, and that she had survived until now only to demand justice. The Emperor's fury mounted that why Euchiron produced a pouch, claiming she had torn it from the villain's person, and begged His Majesty to examine it. The pouch, though ordinary in design, bore a pattern used exclusively for imperial princes, and the embroidery stitch was one known only to the birth mother of the third prince. Liu Sheng's expression turned ghastly while Euchiron added fuel to the fire. This concubine remembers that the man had a red mole on his left shoulder, the size of a sesame seed. This concubine most certainly would not be mistaken. With that, she dashed her head against a pillar and died on the spot. The entire court seized up in tension. The second prince knelt ramrod straight and, to prove his innocence, requested that the imperial physician examine him. The chief physician personally took his pulse and delivered a shattering verdict. The second prince was incapable of fathering children. The ministers buzzed. The second prince then tore open the clothing on his left shoulder, revealing a smooth, unblemished arm. Liu Sheng clenched his jaw. How could he dare to open his own robes? Because he really did have a red mole, right on his left shoulder. The emperor exploded with fury and ordered the crown prince taken into custody. Zhao Xiunian came home extremely late that day. Everything had unfolded exactly as we had calculated, but every step was nerve-wracking. All day he had been on tenterhooks, afraid that a single misstep might send everything crashing down. He was utterly exhausted. Eyes closed. He draped himself over my shoulder and refused to move that I didn't push him away. I let him have a moment of quiet and rest. The second prince was mediocre, dissolute, and lustful. He had never really coveted the throne. Moreover, the Jinghua Duke's household had already resolved to sever ties with him. Before long, the second princess consort might even divorce him. The second prince no longer posed a threat. Only Liu Sheng remained. Today's events were not enough to shake Liu Sheng's foundation, and no matter how much the emperor might now be wary of him, His Majesty would not depose his chosen heir over a mere palace consort. Besides, there was no substantive evidence against Liu Sheng. Nothing beyond a small pouch and a red mole. That was far from enough to crush a crown prince known for his deep loyalty and great virtue and talent. My goal had simply been to provoke him. I was mulling this over, idly stroking Zhao Xiunian's back. When he refused to let my mind wander, he lifted me into his lap and wrapped his arms around me tightly. I knew the cause of his resentment and fury. For years, Liu Sheng had harbored designs on me. Several times he had schemed against me, and each time I had escaped by the skin of my teeth, barely. Now I lived in deep seclusion, reluctant to venture outdoors, merely biding my time until the greater day was won, swallowing my rage in silence. Zhao Xiunian was angry at Liu Sheng, but he was even angrier at himself. Angry that in the previous life he had failed to protect me. Angry that in this life he still did not have enough power, enough confidence to protect me. That I knew what was in his heart. That I slipped my arms around his neck. Brother Nian, I called him softly. Once the dust settles, take me to Jiangnan to see the peach blossoms. All right, he murmured. Brother Nian, you're so good to me. I coaxed this stubborn man. Really, you're so very good to me. I'm sorry. He sighed. Right now I'm still. You're already wonderful, truly. Brother Nian, I heard that when you cut off the Northern D chieftain's head, you nearly lost your life. I tried to keep my voice steady. The army surgeon said 1 inch deeper, and you would certainly have died. I was so angry, I said, cupping his face. Angry that you lied to me. Angry that you risked your life. and even angrier that you rode back to the capital at full speed before your wound had healed. Our wedding was only half a month away, I said, fixing my eyes on him. Did you mean to make me a widow? I'm sorry, Lin Wan. I covered his mouth with my hand. But I know my boy fought with everything he had to protect me. My tears fell thick and fast as I looked at him. Not letting my gaze waver, I kissed him. That was the first time I had taken the initiative like this. Then he reversed our roles. Gentle yet domineering, he swept through every inch, kissing me until I could barely breathe. That I wanted to push him away, but I was still in his lap, trapped and helpless. After a long moment, he finally released me. His eyes curved with laughter again, though he still refused to let go. I pushed at him, but he wouldn't budge. He pressed his forehead to mine. I'm sorry. I swear, from now on I will never keep a single thing from my Lin Wan. Never again, I said, tears welling, glaring at him. If there's a next time, you can go sleep in the study. I wouldn't dare. He begged for mercy but kept his arms firmly locked around me. Loosen up a little, I said helplessly, squeezed so tightly I could barely breathe. I'm not running away. Just hold on a little longer. He let out a sigh. Tomorrow I have to leave. Oh. I stared at him, every inch of me unwilling. Somehow, I had grown increasingly dependent on him. I simply could not bear to let him go. An iron mine has indeed been discovered in Shaanxi that appears to be connected to Liu Sheng's people. He reached up and wiped the tears from my eyes. I must go and see it for myself. In my previous life, in the 3rd year of Liu Sheng's reign, a massive iron mine was reported in Shaanxi, the largest since the founding of the Great Zhou dynasty. It provided ample raw material for Liu Sheng to recruit soldiers, buy horses, and forge weapons. By the following autumn, the Sichuanabet region had been recovered. Liu Sheng's grip on the throne was thus secured. Now that he had been reborn, he would certainly not let such juicy morsels slip through his fingers. After all, long nights bring unsettled dreams. Only once you've swallowed something can you feel at ease. The only question was, in his current position as crown prince, could he really swallow it? The stakes were enormous, and every step was fraught with difficulty. Though I was aggrieved, I had no choice but to part from Zhao Xiunian. How long will you be gone? A little over a month, he reassured me. At most a month and a half. So 45 days, I said, counting on my fingers, 12 2-hour periods in a day, and you won't be here for any of them. I promise, within 45 days, I will definitely be back. Tomorrow, when I ride to the southeast camp, I'll fall and break my leg. I'll need 2 months of rest at home. He whispered his plan in my ear. While I'm gone, stay at home with mother and grandmother. When I return, I'll take you to Jiangnan to see the peach blossoms. We both knew a storm was coming, but we did not mean to hide. On the contrary, we meant to break through the dark clouds and find the sunlight. That I took his hand. I only beg you to be extremely careful. Don't worry about home. I'll take care of everything. Outside, the wind and rain were fierce that we held each other for warmth. 26 The next morning, Zhao Xiunian left as usual for the southeast camp to drill the troops, while I sat on my embroidery stool, mind wandering, stitching listlessly. Sure enough, by midday Zhao Xiunian was carried home on a stretcher. Word was that his horse had suddenly gone mad. Young General Zhao had been thrown, and the startled beast had trampled his left leg. The military physician had already examined him and said that the young general would likely be bedridden for months. That I busied myself ordering the servants to serve tea and pastries so as not to be inhospitable to the guests, while also consumed with worry over Zhao Xiunian's injury. He was really taking a risk. What if the horse had truly broken his leg? I didn't have to feign my worry over his wounds. That I simply frowned and was somewhat cooler with the guests than usual, which served perfectly to craft the image of a newlywed wife distraught over her husband. When I had finally ushered everyone away, I went into the room to see him. "Are you hurt?" I demanded anxiously. The man simply laughed, carefree as ever. "I'm fine, that I just rolled around in the mud a bit." Smiling, he caught my hand. "Benlay knows how to place her hooves. She didn't hurt me in the slightest." "You're too reckless," I scolded him. "If something really had happened, do you think there's any medicine for regret?" "I know my limits, Lin Wan." He brushed his fingers over my brow. "Don't keep frowning. What do you know?" I glared. "If the horse really trampled you, where would you find regret then?" I didn't want to cry. With parting so near, I wanted to let him go with a peaceful heart, but I couldn't stop the tears that I sobbed till I was hiccuping. He couldn't leave now. All he could do was soothe me bit by bit, but I only cried harder, until I retched several times in AROW. At first, I thought it was from crying so hard, but then it struck me. Zhao Xiunian was right here before me, safe and sound. Why on earth was I crying? What did I have to cry about? "Wanner," Zhao Xiunian asked cautiously, "has your monthly cycle come?" My heart jolted. In the last few days I'd been so on edge over the second prince's affair that I'd completely forgotten about this. From the 37th year of the Huaiwa, our A&MY hands began to shake. Zhao Xiunian called for the military physician. The doctor, who had not gone far, was summoned back. He took my pulse, and I remained in a daze. The physician said I was already 2 months pregnant. Was he coming back? Was my Lear coming back? I touched my belly and tears streamed down my face. "Lear, in this life, this mother of yours will absolutely protect you. Absolutely. Without fail, that I've chosen a different father for you. Given you a different identity. Given you a home where your parents love each other. In this life, you won't have to bury yourself in official documents. Won't have to be forced to grow up too early. You can ride horses and shoot arrows, write poetry and compose couplets, tease young girls until their cheeks flush pink, just like any other young lord." Suddenly I felt full of strength, because I was going to be a mother. Zhao Xiunian held my hand, his eyes full of unspoken worry. "Don't worry. I'll take care of everything at home and wait for you to return." "Take care of yourself." "I'm sorry," he faltered. "I shouldn't have let you become pregnant at a time like this." "You don't want this child?" "Absolutely not," he said, looking at me. "It's just, I'm afraid. I have to leave in a few days. Now you're pregnant. If I don't come back, what will you do?" I understood what he feared. He was afraid I would become his mother. His mother had been trapped because of him her entire life. He didn't want to trap me. "Zhao Xiunian, listen carefully. Your mother stayed in the Zhao family not for you, but for your father," I said solemnly. "I will not stay because of a child, nor will I leave because there is no child. I came here for you, and only for you. And you needn't worry about what I would do if you never came back. If you die, I will not live on alone." I was not joking. "Without you, what difference is there from my last life? I will return alive. I swear it." He pulled me close and made his solemn vow. "I will never leave you all alone." "I've thought of a nickname for the child," I said, knowing his deepest fears. "We'll call him Lear. His formal name can be Zhao Xiunian." Zhao Xiunian. Zhao. Ji. Lin. 27. No matter how unwilling to part, when night fell, Zhao Xiunian had to go. The journey to Shaanxi was long, at least half a month. The earlier he left, the earlier he could return. Smiling, I watched him leap onto the wall. Only when I turned away did I wipe the tears from the corners of my eyes. Why was I so prone to tears since becoming pregnant? I was never like this in my last life. It must be because Zhao Xiunian had spoiled me so. The more I thought, the sadder I felt. and I buried myself in the quilt. The days passed one after another, and no letter arrived from Zhao Xiunian, but I did receive news that the emperor had lifted Liu Sheng's confinement. Word was that His Majesty had scolded him fiercely. Liu Sheng knelt in the palace of heavenly purity and wept for a long time, until father and son reconciled. It was a truly moving scene of imperial family love. Today was sister-son's wedding day. In the previous life, Liu Sheng had never paid attention to son Fuxiang, so naturally he had not plotted against her. I breathed a sigh of relief. She was dressed in splendid bridal robes, her face a mix of joy and shyness. The third son of the Zhuang family had earned the rank of Tanhua in this year's spring examinations. Overjoyed, he had quickly set the wedding date. Young Master Zhuang had truly fallen for sister's son, and we were all thrilled. We teased the bride until she grew flustered and threatened to pinch our cheeks. Mindful of my pregnancy, she only lightly tapped my forehead. Soon to be a mother, and still so childish. If it weren't for your happy occasion today, I wouldn't have come out at all, I said. With Zhao Xiunian still not back and Liu Sheng stirring up trouble at court, I had barely stepped beyond the gates of the Zhao residence. True enough, she said without suspicion. Young General Zhao is still bedridden. You've only just passed the first 3 months. Your pregnancy has only just stabilized. You shouldn't be running about. I came to see off my big sister. How is that running about? I protested weakly. In the end, sister Sun still sought out Lady Sun and urged her to watch over me closely and make sure nothing went wrong. When the appointed hour arrived, the bridegroom collected the bride. I stayed for the feast at the Sun household before I was able to return home. After lunch, I set off at a leisurely pace. Suddenly my eyelids grew heavy. Once I climbed into the carriage, I couldn't keep them open. When I awoke, my whole body ached and I felt deeply unrest. I opened my eyes. I was in a completely unfamiliar place. My heart dropped, but I quickly steadied myself. I had grown too lax in my pregnancy, and that scoundrel Liu Sheng had seized his chance. If I was not mistaken, this was some residence on the outskirts of the capital. With time so tight, Liu Sheng couldn't have taken me far. He had to stash me somewhere for the moment that I ate and drank as I pleased. The elderly deaf-mute woman who brought my meals actually tended me quite attentively. Only no matter how I argued or pleaded, she would not utter a single word in reply. On the third day, I heard the sound of large numbers of troops on the move that I could fairly well guess. Liu Sheng had rebelled. The noise outside never ceased. One contingent of soldiers entered the city, and it seemed like another unit arrived soon after. But the room was locked, and I couldn't break it open. The 2 old women kept constant watch over me, and over the past few days they had even tied me up. I don't know how. Many more days passed. Finally, the sounds of fighting outside began to die down. Liu Sheng burst in, seething with rage. Lin Wan, I have come to take you back to be my Empress, he laughed maniacally. Aren't you happy? His appearance, he seemed to have been defeated, covered in blood, utterly disheveled. He pressed closer. You're not willing? Willing at what? Going to hell with you. My voice was icy. You've lost, Liu Sheng. Ha 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 ha, he laughed wildly. How could I possibly lose? All I have to do is take you there again. Be reborn together with me. I'll kill Zhao Xiunian first, get you before he does, and then I'll have one. I retched several times that I assumed it was just overwrought emotions. But with Zhao Xiunian standing safe and sound before me, how could I be crying this hard? Wan, has your monthly cycle come? Zhao Xiunian asked carefully. His question jolted me. The past few days we'd been on edge because of the second prince. I had completely forgotten about this. Lear of the 37th year of Huaihua. My hands trembled. Zhao Xiunian immediately called for a physician. The army doctor, who hadn't yet gone far, was summoned back. Even after he finished taking my pulse, I remained in a daze. The doctor said I was 2 months pregnant. Had he come back? Had my Lear come back? I touched my belly, and tears wouldn't stop falling. Lear, mother will protect you in this lifetime. Absolutely, definitely. Protect you. I've found you a different father, a different identity, a different family, where mother and father love each other. I in this life. You don't have to bury yourself in books. Nobody will force you to grow up too fast. You can learn to ride, to write poetry, to study whatever you like, to flirt with girls until they blush. Just like any other young man. I suddenly felt a fierce resolve, because I was going to be a mother. Zhao Xiunian held my hand, his gaze heavy, concern written all over his face. Don't worry, I'll take good care of everything at home and wait for you to come back. Take care of yourself. I'm sorry. He paused. I shouldn't have let you get pregnant at a time like this. You don't want this child? I have no such intention. He looked at me. It's just that I'm afraid. I'm about to leave, and now you're pregnant. If I can't come back, what will you do? I knew what he feared. He feared I would become like his mother. His mother was trapped her whole life by him. He didn't want me to be trapped. Zhao Xiunian, listen carefully. Your mother didn't stay in the Zhao family for your sake. She stayed for your father, I said in earnest. I won't stay for a child, and I won't leave for lack of one. From beginning to end, I'm here for you, as a person. And you needn't worry what I do if you can't come back. If you die, I will not live on. I wasn't joking. Without you, what difference is there from my last life? I swear, I will come back alive. Definitely alive. He hugged me tight, making a promise. I will never leave you alone. I've thought of a pet name for the child, Lear. He knew what was in my heart, and the formal name, Zhao Xiunian. Zhao Xiunian, and no matter how reluctant Zhao Xiunian was, once night fell, he still had to go. Shangxi was far, at least a fortnight's journey. Better to leave early and return soon. I smiled as I watched him vault onto the garden wall. After turning away, I quietly wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes. Why was I crying so much just because I was pregnant? I never wept like this in my past life. Maybe it's because Zhao Xiunian had truly spoiled me. The more I thought, the sadder I felt. Day followed day. On one side, Zhao Xiunian sent no word. On the other, Liu Sheng was released by the emperor. Rumor had it that the emperor had given Liu Sheng a severe scolding. He knelt in the Qinqing palace, weeping bitterly, and in the end father and son made up. A touching scene of imperial reconciliation. Today was sister-son's wedding day, a joyous occasion. In the past life, son Fuxiang had been a nobody to Liu Sheng, utterly dispensable, so he couldn't be bothered to scheme against her. That gave me some relief. She wore her scarlet wedding gown, her brows alight with happiness and shy charm. Zhang Sanling had placed among the top scholars in this spring's imperial examination and was overjoyed as soon as the results came out, hurrying to set the wedding date. The Zhang family had set their eyes on sister's son, and we were all happy for her. We teased her so much that she pretended to be angry and tried to pinch our cheeks. Only with me she showed restraint because of my belly. She let me off with a light tap on the forehead. You're about to be a mother, and you're still this reckless. If it weren't your big day, I wouldn't have stepped out at all. With Zhao Xiunian still not back and Liu Sheng stirring up trouble at court, I was living in seclusion and wouldn't leave the Zhao residence for anything. True, sister's son said, suspecting nothing. Young General Zhao is still lying ill in bed, and you've barely passed the first 3 months, just entering a more stable period. You really shouldn't be wandering around. I came to see my sister off as a bride. That doesn't count as wandering around. My protests were overruled, and sister Sun had Lady Sun watch me from every angle, afraid I might run into any mishap. When the auspicious hour came, the groom carried off the bride that I naturally had to stay for a meal at the Sun household before going back. After lunch, I slowly made my way home. For some reason, my eyelids suddenly grew leaden. Once I got into the carriage, they simply wouldn't open. When I woke, my back ached terribly, and I felt as if I'd slept very poorly. Did I open my eyes to an utterly unfamiliar setting? Alarm struck me, but I swiftly calmed myself that I cursed myself for growing so lax during my pregnancy, giving that wretch Liu Sheng an opening. If I guessed right, this was a country estate on the outskirts of the capital. Given the short time, Liu Sheng couldn't have sent me far. He'd just stashed me in some temporary place that I ate and drank what was given. The serving woman was deaf and mute, her care surprisingly attentive, but she ignored whatever I said. On the third day, I heard the thunder of large numbers of troops on the move outside. That I guessed it was likely Liu Sheng rebelling. The commotion beyond the house never ceased. I heard troops enter the city, and then more troops seemed to come. But the door was locked and I couldn't force it, with two hawkish women standing guard. These past few days they had even tied me up. What felt like several more days passed before the cries of killing finally stopped. Liu Sheng burst in, a whirlwind of fury. "Lin Wan, I have come to take you back to be my Empress." He laughed, vicious and distorted. "Aren't you happy?" His appearance, he had probably been defeated, bloodstained, utterly disheveled. He pressed closer. "You're not willing?" "Willing for what?" "To go to hell with you." My voice was perfectly calm. "You've lost, Liu Sheng." "Ha ha ha ha," he laughed wildly. "How could I possibly lose? All I need is for us to be reborn again together. I'll kill Zhao Xiunian first, get you before he does, and then I'll have one." Knife in hand, he moved closer step by step. "Lian Bao, don't be afraid. Just one jab, and we'll go back. Then our family of three." A family of three? It seemed I understood Liu Sheng's obsession. "Shut up," I shouted furiously. "What right do you have to talk about a family of three? You killed Lear, you killed my Lear. I didn't want that." At my words he finally stopped walking. In that past life, not a day went by that I didn't regret that my Lear had left me so soon. He was the heir I trained painstakingly. The child into whom I poured the most care. He was my most talented, most outstanding child. None of his younger brothers could compare to his virtue, ability, and prudence. Before I died, I saw Deng Lianer for what she was. She told me she had never loved me for even a moment. She conspired with consort to poison me. Just because I wanted to send my third princess, Nwanshi, for a political marriage. All of them, all the women of the harem banded together to poison me. They did a beautiful job, far better than I ever could when I was alive. "Lian Bao, I have changed. I won't take so many women into the palace again." He hastily dug a bracelet from his robe, carved from the finest mutton fat jade. "See, in your last life you loved mutton fat jade bangles the most. I had this specially made. You failed Lear, and you failed me." I was still calm. "Do you even remember Lear's birthday?" "Of course I do. Lear was born in the 9th month of the 37th year of Huaihua." His gaze fell on my belly, and his words stuck in his throat. Lear has come back. You killed him once. Are you going to kill him a second time?" Liu Sheng faltered, then roared madly. "Impossible. He can't be Lear. I am not his father. How could he be Lear? Who his father is doesn't matter. What matters is, he is my child. He is Lear." I stood up, wrists still bound. "Liu Sheng, I'll ask you one question. In my past life, when did Zhao Xiunian die?" I remembered lying in Fengyi Palace, waiting to die. There was a time when Wenxing would secretly weep and burn spirit money outside, trying to act as if everything was normal, but I could smell the incense on her clothes. But by then I was too far gone to ask about it. Him? Liu Sheng laughed uproariously. He died even before you. By then I had cultivated capable generals enough. Why would I keep a dog who had designs on my Empress? Bullshit. I glared at him, but that only made him laugh harder. So you two really did have an affair. Lin Wan, have you ever thought that Zhao Xiunian was reborn too? He knew about my iron mines, my inoculation, my schemes that if he hadn't been reborn, how could he know everything? He's hiding things from you. Lying to you too. I was the one who told him. I broke into a smile. I never liked being called Lian Bao. Not one bit that I never liked the mutton fat bangles. From the start, what I liked was Zhao Xiunian himself. What I like is when he calls me Lian Bao. The bangle he gave me. His blade was about to plunge into my chest and I didn't close my eyes. Only felt a deep regret that it seemed in this life too. I wouldn't be able to walk with Zhao Xiunian to the ENDAT that moment. An arrow burst through the window and struck Liu Sheng in the throat. He slumped slowly to the ground. By then I had nearly worked my wrists free of the ropes that I pulled out the hairpin from my hair. Just a plain wooden pin. But enough. Zhao Xiunian has never deceived me. If he had been reborn, the first thing he would have done was kill you. I squeezed my eyes shut and drove the pin violently into his eye. Liu Sheng twitched a few times, then went still. In that past life, they really did a beautiful job. I was crouching there when Zhao Xiunian kicked the door open and he scooped me up, hands shaking. Are you hurt? Are you all right, Wan? I'm fine. I wrapped my arms around his neck and pressed my cheek to his. I just missed you so much. His arms tightened, and he carried me out. I'm sorry, Wan. I'm sorry I was late. Sorry. I had wanted to comfort him, but somehow his gentle hushing made me feel even more miserable, until finally I couldn't hold back. I wept loudly, ashamed in front of the soldiers, burying my face in his chest, sobbing until I could barely breathe. At last he carried me into the carriage. Exhausted from crying, I fell asleep in his arms, still clutching the front of his clothes. When I woke again it was night, and we were lying peacefully in our own bed. He was still sleeping, likely worn out from days upon days of travel and finally getting a deep sleep that I couldn't bear to wake him. So I slipped quietly out of bed and softly called for Wenji that a physician had long been waiting at the Zhao residence. After taking my pulse, he confirmed that the child in my womb was unharmed. Only then did I pull Wenji aside and ask in detail about the past days. It turned out that after I left the Sun Estate, the carriage broke down not far away. The driver went to borrow another carriage while the guards and Wenji stood watch, and I was comfortably asleep inside. Wenji said the carriage was surrounded tight by the Zhao family guards. But someone knocked her out, and I vanished right under everyone's noses. The Zhao household searched for 3 full days without a trace, driving Sister Sun and Lady Sun frantic with worry. Amidst the panic, Crown Prince Liu Sheng rebelled. 2 days into the rebellion, Zhao Xiunian led 3,000 light cavalry from the southeastern garrison into the capital to protect the emperor. Liu Sheng was captured but escaped through a secret tunnel in the imperial prison. Zhao Xiunian pursued him for 3 days and nights without closing his eyes, and by sheer chance, rescued me. I sat there, lowering my head to caress my belly. Wenji slipped out quietly. Someone draped a heavy cloak over my shoulders. Why are you up? I turned to look at him. Woke up. His voice was still hoarse. Let me hold you a while longer. I leaned against him. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Finally, Zhao Xiunian broke the silence. Wan, why did you ask him how I died in the last life? I always felt you shouldn't have died that year. I dropped my head. I tried so hard to stay distant from you, but he still refused to let you go. That's all in the past now. He pulled me entirely into his embrace. In this life, I killed him that I no longer need to keep my distance from you, Wan. I can hold you openly and take you home. Zhao Xiunian. My voice cracked. When everything settles, let's go to Jiangnan. I was so exhausted. All those schemes and intrigues had trapped me for 2 full lives. All right, he said. Wait for me just a little longer. I'll take you to Jiangnan to see the peach blossoms. The next day, Zhao Xiunian stayed home with me, and we spent a sweet, sticky day in our little courtyard. On the 3rd day, he had to go to court again. The emperor was close to death. Liu Sheng's rebellion had made him vomit blood in fury. When he regained consciousness, he made several decisions. He was still asleep. Worn out from months of travel, no doubt that I couldn't bear to wake him. So I quietly slipped out of bed and called for Wenji. A physician had already been waiting at the Zhao residence. After checking my pulse, he assured me the child was unharmed. Only then did I press Wenji for the full story of the past few days. It turned out that the day I left the Sun household, our carriage broke down on the road. The driver went off to find a replacement, while the guards and Wenji stayed behind, and I slept soundly inside the carriage. Wenji swore the carriage was tightly encircled by the Zhao family's guards. Yet after someone knocked her unconscious, I had simply vanished. Right from under their noses. The Zhao family searched for 3 days in vain, and even Sister Sun and Madam Sun were beside themselves with guilt. Just as everyone had reached their wits' end, Crown Prince Liu Sheng staged his rebellion. 2 days later, Zhao Xiunian arrived to protect the emperor with 3,000 light cavalry from the southeastern camp. Liu Sheng was captured, but then escaped through a secret passage in the imperial prison. Zhao Xiunian pursued him for 3 days and 3 nights without rest, and by doing so, he happened to rescue me. I sat there, resting a hand on my belly. Wenji quietly withdrew, and a moment later, a cloak was draped over my shoulders. Why are you up? I turned to look at him. Just woke, he said, his voice a little hoarse. Let me hold you for a moment. I leaned into him, and for a while neither of us spoke. At last, Zhao Xiunian broke the silence. Wan, why did you ask him how I died in your last life? I've always felt you shouldn't have died that year. I lowered my gaze. We'd already kept our distance as much as humanly possible, yet he still wouldn't let you go. It doesn't matter now, he said, wrapping his arms around me from behind. In this life, I killed him, and I don't have to keep my distance from you anymore. I can hold you and walk home openly. Zhao Xiunian. My voice cracked. When everything settles, let's go to Jiangnan. The schemes and intrigues of 2 lifetimes had utterly exhausted me. All right, he said. Wait for me just a little longer. I'll take you to Jiangnan to see the peach blossoms. The next day, Zhao Xiunian stayed home with me, and we spent a sweet, sticky day in our little courtyard. On the 3rd day, he had to go to court again. The emperor was close to death. Liu Sheng's rebellion had made him vomit blood in fury. When he regained consciousness, he made several decisions. The crown prince, Liu Sheng, was deposed and posthumously granted a princely title with the grim epithet Darkness. His 5th son, Liu Zhe, was named crown prince. Zhao Xiunian, general of the Western expedition, was made Viscount Yong for protecting the emperor. Minister of Revenue Lin Wan became the crown prince's grand tutor. The other rewards and titles aren't worth detailing. My belly grew larger. Though Liu was considerate and didn't make me suffer too much, still, Zhao Xiunian was a nervous wreck. The first time he felt Liu kick nearly sent him running for a physician. In September of that year, as the autumn air cooled, my Liu was born. I was in labor for 3 hours. Zhao Xiunian stood like a wooden post outside the delivery room for every single minute. That's why he never quite warmed to his son. When they placed the soft, pink little bundle in my arms, I knew Lear had come back to me that my mother-in-law was overjoyed. My maternal grandmother beamed as well. The only hitch was we couldn't agree on Lear's nickname. Grandmother wanted Ping'an Nu. My mother-in-law favored Jean Gur. And I, of course, wanted to keep calling him Lear, and in the end, Zhao Xiunian made the call. Everyone could call him whatever they wanted. Fine by me. By the time Lear turned 1, the emperor could no longer hold on. That he passed away in the 38th year of the Huaihua reign. The 5th prince ascended the throne. He turned out to be a very good emperor. Zhao Xiunian petitioned to resign. The emperor refused and stationed him in Hangzhou instead. In the first year of the Luha era, Zhao Xiunian took us to Hangzhou. The peach blossoms there were stunning. In Lua's second year, sister's son became pregnant. I was astonished and overjoyed. In our last life, she'd never had a child. This time, she'd finally fulfill that wish. In Lua's 4th year, I was pregnant again, with twin girls. Zhao Xiunian named them Yuelin and Rulin. They looked nearly identical, but their personalities couldn't have been more different. Yuelin was gentle and sweet. Rulin was vivacious and bright. The girls grew up under their grandmother's care, dressed the same in every way, yet turned into such clever, mischievous little things. In my mother-in-law's helpless but indulgent words, one takes after her father, the other after her mother. Later, Jingjing got married too, to General Li's son, Zhao Xiunian's right-hand man. I heard she fell for him at first sight during Lear's first birthday feast, then pestered him relentlessly for years. That couple never stopped squabbling, but their home was full of life and noise. When Jingjing's first daughter was born, I picked her name, Jingshu. Auntie and sent me a letter begging me to try and tame Jingshu's temperament so she wouldn't turn out like her mother. Sister's son went on to have 3 sons and 2 daughters. Her house was a chaotic, lively circus, but gentle as ever. Tanhua Lang couldn't keep up with 3 wild boys. So sister's son had to roll up her sleeves, grab a bamboo stick, and chase those little monkeys into the study. Her letters were full of complaints about her lively brood, but beneath it all hummed with happiness. In mine, I'd tease her. Heaven must be paying you back all the children you lost last time. Now she was married and ran a tavern in the best district of the capital, sharp and smiling, gentle yet tough. She didn't look at all like the soft, helpless royal favorite she'd been in our last life. Zhao Xiunian was too busy peeling shrimp for me to notice, but I heard a storyteller recounting the tale of a female general from the northwest, Chu Qian, consort Chu in our last life, who died of bitterness, and now lived happily galloping across the grasslands of the northwest. So beautiful we had all, finally, become the people we wanted to be. Through the shifting lantern light, Zhao Xiunian slipped a shrimp to my mouth. Try it. I bit it gently. Thank you. His smile was full of love. For what? Thank you. Thank you for walking me from darkness into dawn. Thank you for risking your life to protect me. Thank you for always believing me. Always standing with me through everything Liu Sheng tangled us in. Thank you for bringing Lear back. Thank you for taking me across the great Zhou's mountains and rivers instead of locking me in a courtyard. Thank you, in this life, for choosing to love me. End of Here Among the Autumn Mountains.